This is the tale of Joshua Sander, the hero who ended the Empire's civil war. However, he is betrayed by Emperor Kaiser. As he lays gravely wounded, moments from death, his spear, Luja, released a surge of energy. Later, he is reincarnated in his younger body at his old stable, and resolves to grasp his second chance. With unwavering resolve, he sets out to rewrite his fate and exact his revenge. For a knight to rise to the rank of master, they need to break the existing stereotype completely, and it must be done with a sword. But the legendary Spear Knight smashed tradition to become a master knight without wielding a sword. This luminary figure is Joshua Sanders, the great hero in the vast Igrant content, who immediately stopped the war of the Avalon Empire. But in the current situation, history's greatest Spear Knight is in a dire situation, and the blood is gushing out of his mouth. 4 men and a woman encircle him, and in their midst, an older man dressed in a white robe cruelly taunts the legendary Spear Knight for his vulnerability at this pivotal juncture. The one cloaked in a black robe that obscures half his visage comments that for a warrior who is extremely enthusiastic about mana, magic power, and divine power are paradoxically antagonistic because both collide inside the body. Addressing Joshua, he queries whether he had been an ordinary individual because this impact would have already ushered him into the embrace of death. Meanwhile, the protagonist kneels in pain and ponders why he is saying all that. Furthermore, he claims that he never once desired to steal the throne and didn't spare a single thought on such a thing. Joshua clarifies that he just wanted to show the world the greatness of the weapon known as the spear. He wanted to ease the grievance of being the son of a concubine and to help his master and his one and only friend. He had dreamt of a lifetime devoted to safeguarding the Avalon Empire Emperor's reign, shielding the realm with his unwavering presence. The master of the Tower of Magic, Evergrant, steps ahead, stating that there are beings that are a great danger to this world just by existing. While Joshua gnashes his teeth with ire, the man adds that the civil war is over, and the Emperor envisions an ascent to the pinnacle of authority, where he can enact his ambitions without impediment. Moreover, he reveals that Joshua is the one person who instills fear in the Emperor. Egrant remarks that even martial artists who have spent their entire lives researching mana take decades to cover a single small dagger and sword aura. However, Joshua can completely cover that massive spear the size of 2 people in an aura. This leads him to contemplate the extensive tally of adversaries he must have vanquished with that spear. The orb the man holds begins to emit a radiant gleam while Egrant claims that he knows Joshua has transcended another formidable wall. Joshua is aware that orb should have been within the ruins of Ammon, prompting him to wonder about its acquisition. A middle-aged knight stepped forth, asserting that he feared Joshua and that the spear made him feel unwell just by looking at it, thinking that the spear might appear and stab him. He confesses that he grew paranoid because of it. However, Joshua longed to respond, yet his lips remained resolutely sealed. Egrant feigns to thank him for everything until now, as it wasn't for him, they wouldn't have been here today. And for that, he bowed deeply to express his gratitude. Then in stark contrast, the man wearing a malicious grin whispered a parting message, addressing the old companion with a sinister tone. Joshua tumbles down on the ground, and blood profusely spills out of his mouth, while the Avalon Empire's Emperor Caesar von Britain averts his gaze, asserting that he cannot witness his best friend's last moments. Addressing Caesar Britain, Juhak yells not to think this is the end of it. Meanwhile, a magic explosion circle glimmer on the ground. It is an explosive magic circle with the power to annihilate everything within a 50-meter radius. At this speed, the protagonist realizes he has 5 minutes at the most. Nevertheless, he deems the time frame inconsequential. The gradually intensifying light makes his heart pound, and he concludes that the legendary Spear Knight is a false title now. He is in despair for being betrayed by his friend and considers himself a second-rate knight that will die namelessly in this forest. Amid the chaos, his attention is drawn to his crimson spear. Lucia, known as the Grim Reaper of the battlefield, emits a radiant gleam energy. He desperately crawls to grasp it and thinks that a special strength would be hidden inside it. But to think that it would show that strength at this moment. Like a possessed man, he desperately stretched his hands toward the spear on the floor. Joshua choked down the pain, resolute in believing that taking action now would end his suffering. He sighed triumphantly when his hands finally met the spear. In an instant, a bright flash accompanied by a thundering boom. The magic circle exploded with an earth-shattering bang, and everything disappeared with a violent roar. The Grand Duke of Avalon Empire, the land of knights, Joshua Sanders, met an empty fate that goes against his fame as the undefeated Spear Knight. Later, Joshua stumbles on a haystack and notices this is a horse stable. He contemplates how he survived that massive explosion and why his hands are tiny. A thought hits his mind, and he rushes toward the well and sees his reflection in a bucket full of water. He cannot believe that his body got younger, but as he looks around, he comprehends that this is where he used to live. Soon he realizes that he has returned to his past, and a smug smile crosses his lips as he perceives this as another opportunity to rewrite his history. With a slightly eerie expression, he thinks about Caesar von Britain, asserting that this life will unfold differently. While he stands there, 3 boys come up, asserting what he is doing here and why he's not attending to the task of cleaning horse manure, as previously instructed. Joshua recognizes that those guys are Agnes Duchy's personal troops. One of the boys, Lloyd, expresses frustration, urging Joshua to respond when spoken to. Another boy named Rolf sarcastically asks his companion if he has forgotten that Joshua is mute. Meanwhile, the protagonist remembers that he pretended he couldn't talk since he would get hit more if he opened his mouth. The boys mockingly remark about not having seen Lucia, a maid, for some time. One of them hushes the other, suggesting it wouldn't bode well if the Duke were to find out, as he occasionally inquires about her whereabouts. Joshua becomes sad to hear their comments about his mother, Lucia, the exclusive maid of the Agnes Duchy. He is painfully reminded that he is the illegitimate child of Lucia, the maid whom Duke Agnes forcibly held. Aware of this fact, the personal troops taunt him maliciously, exploiting his noble lineage as a source of venomous amusement, particularly the 3 formidable individuals standing before him. Joshua harbors a deep-seated pledge for the future to exact revenge on these tormentors, ensuring that one day, they will face the consequences of their actions. The boys continue to mock his mother, and one brandishes his finger at him, asserting that who else will be here at this remote stale, excluding Joshua. Lloyd remarks on Duchess Vanessa's words that she will take responsibility even if they get rid of Lucia, and her illegitimate kid discreetly. He thinks it's the best timing to get rid of them. But Lucia isn't there, so they decide to amuse themselves by toying with Joshua. Meanwhile, rage courses through Joshua's veins as he firmly resolves not to allow those brats who insulted his mother to escape without consequences. He clenches his fist and contemplates whether the approach he's about to take will yield the desired results. The mana technique he has learned is distinct from conventional methods, and he wonders if his execution will diverge from the norm before he returns. He discovered the mana technique at the ancient ruins with his favorite spear Lucia, as it could reach the peak quickly because of the amazing impact that could shake the world. The important thing is that the mana technique he practiced had a completely different operation method, as it isn't done by accumulating mana in the mana hole that is located under the abdomen normally, but by using the mana scattered in the surroundings. Unrestricted by the confines of the conventional mana reservoir, he could channel mana precisely where required and ignite it all at once. Consequently, Joshua could bypass the necessity of creating a mana reservoir, a process others labored through for years to achieve. In tandem, Gort strides forward, brandishing a baton intending to strike Joshua, and asserts that he won't be able to rein in his strength. Despite the chilling threat in Gort's voice, Joshua kept his eyes shut and didn't respond. They deride him, assuming he has succumbed to their intimidation, yet Joshua remains aware that he needs to manipulate a small quantity of mana before his return. It took him a decade to achieve this level of control, but now he already knows how. The menacing gaze of Joshua enrages the brat, who then lunges to assault him. However, to their surprise, the protagonist knocks him down with a soul move that startles the remaining delinquents. Joshua then feels something really sticky and disturbing under his abdomen, which should be completely empty. He is sure it was something he couldn't feel before his return. Lloyd unleashes his sword, asserting that Joshua is crazy because he wants to die. Despite being aware of the danger of facing a trained soldier wielding a long sword, Joshua calculates that if he can incapacitate Lloyd, the most cautious of the trio, there's a strong likelihood that Rolf won't engage in an attack. Joshua remains unfazed when Lloyd attempts to assault him, and he evades it easily. In return, he smacks the delinquent's face with a handful of mana, causing him to fumble on the ground with blood gushing profusely through his mouth. Rolf finds it crazy as he doesn't expect that bastard who can't even talk was hiding such formidable power. Meanwhile, Joshua remains in contemplation, puzzled by the intensity of pain he's experiencing despite employing only a modest amount of mana. He knows that Rolf was promoted to Centurion with his wit more than his skills, and he isn't better than Lloyd and Gort. Nonetheless, Joshua acknowledges that Rolf, even with his skills, poses a potential threat, and Joshua resolves not to reveal any vulnerability in this situation. With a stern posture, Joshua asserts that from this moment onwards, anyone, including the centurions, who dares to insult his mother will face his unwavering resolve under the name Joshua. His stern demeanor and gaze shiver down Rolf's spine, and he immediately retreats to save himself. As the delinquents flee, Joshua's strength wanes. He tumbles onto the ground and eventually succumbs to unconsciousness. The next day, the bizarre rumors spread among the Duke's soldiers like wildfire, and it's been the talk of every mouth that Joshua, the mute kid of the stables, beat the crap out of the 3 centurions. At the courtyard beside the residence, groups of servants were gathered at the corner of the courtyard entrance and chattered as they worked. The janitor shares the rumor about Joshua pretending to be mute all this time on purpose. Among the speculations, a man muses how the young master Joshua managed to overpower the centurions despite being over 5 years younger than young master Babel. However, Baran remains skeptical of the rumors, as he thinks the story got exaggerated and asks whether they think the mute kid who got abandoned by his family a few days ago could single-handedly defeat the centurions. The elder among them asserts that if the rumors are true, the standings of Duke Agnes' children in succession may change. Baran confidently asserts that even the esteemed Duke Agnes, who currently holds mastery, achieved mana user status at 16. In comparison, the young master Babel, at a mere 14 years old, has already become a mana user. He concludes that this early accomplishment indicates Babel's exceptional genius must be an outstanding genius who will surpass even Duke Agnes one day. Joshua steps in out of nowhere, and, with a firm stance, he directs his words towards Baran, commanding him to convey to the Duke that Joshua von Agnes has arrived. On the other hand, at Duke Agnes's workplace, Rolf kneels in front of him and discloses the entire story of their confrontation with Joshua. The master recognizes him and then asks about his affiliation, to which he responds that he is from the 29th Griezmann's battalion. Duke then commands him to bring him that suit of armor. After witnessing that, he ponders whether Joshua was the one who did this to the armor. Chiffon, the master's adjutant, warns him to think carefully before answering because he will not be forgiven if he utters even the slightest lie. However, Rolf vehemently insists he isn't lying. The master can't comprehend the situation and inquires Chiffon about Joshua's age, to which he informs that he is 9 years old. In response, the Duke asserts that destroying a suit of armor made of orc leather with mere physical strength at that age would be possible only if Joshua had employed mana somehow. Apologizing for the discourtesy, Chiffon intervenes abruptly to state his viewpoint, and flatly dismisses the possibility, asserting that there is no record in the continent's history of anyone being able to effectively employ mana in an actual combat scenario at the age of 9. He contemplates the potential that young Master Joshua might become an unparalleled genius in history, pointing out that even a highly accomplished B-rank knight would require substantial talent to envelop their hands with mana. Thus, he firmly states his disbelief in the notion that a 9-year-old like young Master Joshua could have executed such an act successfully. Chiffon then exclaims, his frustration evident, that it appears far more plausible that these individuals were gripped by fear that their mistreatment of the young master would be exposed. He contends that they concocted a nonsensical excuse using their feeble minds. He implores the master to grant him permission to take Rolf outside and administer a public lesson, aiming to rectify the declining discipline within their troop. Despite Chiffon's accusations, Rolf persists in asserting the veracity of his previous account, maintaining that Chiffon's assertions are untrue, and that the details he previously shared are indeed accurate. Chiffon advances toward Rolf, his anger palpable as he questions Rolf's audacity to raise his voice before the Duke and urges him to reveal the truth. Rolf is terrified because of his rage but persists that he isn't lying. Duke Agnes halts him from further acting against that guy and declares they will discover the truth once they meet the person in question. Instead of calling him over, he plans to meet Joshua for the first time in forever. Captain Chiffon contemplates the Duke's unprecedented action of personally meeting the son of a concubine. He reflects that the Duke has never displayed such interest, even in young Master Babel, renowned as the Empire's greatest genius. Duke Agnes inquires where Joshua is, and the captain informs him that he has arrived and must be inside the first floor's waiting room. Then, the Duke urges him to lead him toward Joshua. On the other hand, while walking through the Agnes Mansion's corridor, Babel notices Joshua and ponders what that bastard is doing there. Simultaneously, Joshua is captivated by a portrait of the current Emperor of Avalon, Marcus van Britten, hanging on a wall. The sight of the portrait triggers a surge of anger within him due to the uncanny resemblance between Marcus and Caesar van Britten, fueling his determination to exact revenge on him. Suddenly, Babel lunges forward in an attempt to strike Joshua's face, voicing his frustration at being seemingly ignored. However, Joshua's swift reflexes allow him to evade the blow skillfully, and he fiercely grasps his outstretched fist, making him tremble in pain. Babel clenches his teeth, wondering whether the rumors are true, and plans to use the mana as he won't go down without a fight. Soon, Duke Agnes steps in there, asserting what he is thinking of doing. Babel abruptly quits his plan and kneels in deference to greet his father. When the man repeats his question, Babel responds that they are exchanging heartwarming greetings. The Duke's expression becomes stern as he shifts his gaze to Joshua, who affirms the statement with a nod. Chiffon becomes enraged at Joshua's nonchalant behavior and brandishes his blade to punish the juvenile. The Duke of Agnes halts Chiffon and urges Joshua that his gaze is filled with hostility and spite. However, he abruptly lowers his gaze, contemplating that portrait reminded him of that scumbag's face he despises and has ignited an overwhelming surge of anger that he struggles to control. Joshua inwardly realizes that this situation isn't favorable because Agnes doesn't easily let go of the people who show hostility before him, even if it's no different if the hostile person in question is his child. Duke Agnes asserts that Joshua should approach him if he has regained his composure. He declares his intention to personally verify whether Joshua is genuinely capable of using mana or not. Babel, who had been silently observing, is taken aback by this question and ponders how could someone like Joshua, whom he regards as lowly, be capable of using mana. Babel finds the idea utterly implausible, considering his status as the son of a servant and his significantly younger age. The adjutant respectfully advises the Duke against engaging in such a futile act. However, the Duke remains unmoved by the counsel and, with a tinge of solemnness in his tone, instructs Joshua to come over. Filled with tension, the protagonist's face pales, realizing that Duke Agnes is one of the 5 masters of the vast empire. He is far more sensitive to mana than others, and if he finds some abnormal symptoms in his body, his plan will go down the drain. While Joshua is drowning in his doubts, Duke Agnes, in the blink of an eye, grasps his fist and gives a suspicious look. Joshua realizes that if the mana-sensitive Duke Agnes finds something he doesn't know, his plans must all be adjusted to prevent jeopardizing. Agnes analyzes deeply and, with intense composure, asserts that no mana exists. Babel sarcastically smirks at him as if to say, "Of course, there should be none." Meanwhile, Captain Chiffon comments that mana shouldn't have been present from the beginning. But the leader clarifies that he's not referring to the mana whole. He asserts that a basic amount of mana should exist in every human. He goes on to speculate that even civilians and creatures like monsters possess mana, yet Joshua is an exception, as he shows no mana presence at all. This piques Duke Agnes' interest, as a complete lack of mana typically signifies an undead sustained by demonic power. Duke Agnes asserts that there was something where the mana hole should have been. He detected some sticky mass that gave off bad energy. He proclaims his decision to closely monitor Joshua from this point onward, a declaration that leaves the protagonist startled and apprehensive. Chiffon asks cautiously that if the child has congenital mana disorder, there is a higher chance that the rumors are false and claims to behead those 3 centurions for spreading false rumors. However, the leader halts him from taking such drastic measures, reminding him that the centurion is also an asset of the dukedom, so punishing them based on uncertain information may not be wise. He then commands Joshua to live in the mansion for a while, as there are plenty of empty rooms. Babel attempts to voice his objections, but when Duke Agnes sternly questions him about any issues, Babel reluctantly admits there are none. The Duke advises the adjutant Chiffon to teach Joshua the basic knight lessons and, if he shows talent, teach him the Crimson Knight's method for using mana. Chiffon humbly tries to remind him that Joshua doesn't have mana, but the leader remarks that there is plenty of time to find out if they must wait and see. The Duke asks Joshua that he will forward to his return next year from Acadia. After a while, Chiffon escorts Joshua to his room, pondering the accuracy of the rumors surrounding Joshua's inability to speak. He suspects Joshua's lack of visible happiness despite the significant advantages he has gained, then asks if he needs anything he can call him. With a sigh, Joshua lies down on the bed, feeling a strong desire to fall asleep immediately. Suddenly, Duke's words about looking forward to him next year echo in his mind. Joshua ponders whether, by returning next year, Duke Agnes might be referring to his return from the capital city of Avalon, the imperial castle Arcadia. He knows Duke Agnes spends most of the year in Acadia's Golden Castle, and he most likely returned to the fief for a rest. Watching his fist, Joshua wonders if the Duke has discovered something even he himself isn't aware of. whatever it may be. He considers it dangerous for Duke Agnes to possess the knowledge he lacks. Soon, he casts aside his restlessness and steps down from the bed, reiterating that his primary goal is to reclaim his original strength to exact revenge. At midnight, he cautiously peers out the window and then decisively slips out of the mansion. Considering that using this amount of mana isn't too much of a burden, he contemplates that he might be able to regain his former strength quicker than anticipated. Suddenly, excruciating pain courses through his body as the malevolent energy mass within his mana hole terminates. He perceives the presence of something that seems to be suppressing the conflicting energies, but he's unable to definitively ascertain whether it's holy power or a demonic force. Soon, he discovers it's his favorite spear, Lukia's powerful force inside his body and restraining the two energies. The spear soothes his bizarre condition, and as his pain subsides, he rushes onward. On the other hand, in a dwelling, those three centurions are harassing the concubine, Lucia. Filled with fury, Gord unleashes his sword, expressing his frustration that her son's actions have tarnished their reputation. In a desperate attempt to defend herself, Lucia bites down on Lloyd's arm, causing him to release his grip on her neck, causing him to tumble her away. He then pulls her hair while Gort urges him to hold her tight. Rolls halts his companion to think again, pondering what if that kid finds out again. Gort smacks his hand aside, reminding him of their sole mission to half-kill that bastard by harming his mother. Then yells that the Duchess has already assured them she will take responsibility for everything and urges Rolls to leave if he's so fearful, while Lloyd mocks him too, referring to him as a scaredy cat. As they torment her, Joshua steps in with a surge of fiery anger. The brats jeer at him for his delayed arrival, yet Rolls intervenes, cautioning them against mocking Joshua since he's no longer the person they once knew. After a brief silence, Joshua urges someone to appear, surprising the delinquents who wonder who he's addressing. Lloyd steps ahead, asserting that he will send him to hell, but the protagonist remains unfazed and repeats his call for the person to come out. Suddenly, Cain jumps in out of nowhere and wonders how Joshua can sense his presence. Joshua is certain that the cross mark is one of the 3 knight orders under Duke Agnes, then wonders a knight from the Order of Crimson Knight has followed him and whether Chiffin is up to this. The Centurion guys greet Cain, but he pays no attention to them and walks up to Joshua, contemplating whether this child is the rumored child of a concubine. With a stern demeanor, Joshua addresses Cain, stating that a soldier attempted to harm a lady of the Duke's household and asks how such situations are typically handled according to the military law of the Duke's house. Cain can't comprehend the overwhelming force that makes him unable to deny it. He abruptly turns around, draws his sword in compliance with the command, and asserts the necessity of immediate punishment. Cain lunges forward, launching an unexpected attack against the group of Centurion operatives. Quickly and decisively, he gains the upper hand over Lloyd, overpowering him with surprising strength. Despite this, Gord attempts to fight back, but Cain's dominance proves unyielding, leaving him unable to counter for an extended period. In a sudden motion, he swings his blade to strike a fatal blow to Rolf's head. However, this time, Joshua's commanding voice cuts through the air, compelling him to halt his deadly action. Rolf begs for mercy, but Cain sternly warns him to cease talking if he wishes to prolong his fleeting life. The protagonist steps ahead, repeating his words to stop him, but Cain reasons that he is only giving an immediate punishment for putting the Duke's wife in danger. Joshua realizes that he is one of the Third Knights who are well known in the duchy but is part of the Crimson Knights, known as the weakest of the knights, and there is a high chance that he's the youngest of the Crimson Knights. He contemplates that if he is put on him to observe, he is sure that he is the strongest among the C-rank knights, seeing as how he dominated the Centurions with only 1 or 2 swings of his sword. Joshua asserts to let him ask one thing before Cain proceeds and urges who his master is. When Cain responds that it's Duke Agnes, the protagonist sternly points himself out and inquires who he is. Cain senses the familiar intensity in the pressure and fierce gaze, reminiscent of someone he's acquainted with. Joshua commands him to sheath his sword, and the guy abruptly acts on his command. Rolf simultaneously bows down to express his gratitude for being saved and pledges to serve loyalty to Joshua. However, Joshua menacingly remarks that he doesn't need his dedication from someone like Rolf and will never let anyone who has laid a hand on him or his family. Moreover, he instructs him to recount everything he witnessed today to the other soldiers, warning that if anyone ever engages in similar actions, he will personally mete out severe consequences, then urge him to get lost if he has understood what he said, causing the brat to rush. Cain inquires if he is the same Earl he recalls from his memories, to which Joshua sardonically finishes the sentence, labeling himself as the master's illegitimate child who can't talk or the stable dung peddler, causing Cain to feel a deep sense of shame. Cain adds that all the soldiers allocated to the Agnes Duchy can choose their master whom they will serve for the rest of their lives when they turn 23 years old, so he expresses his desire to watch over Joshua apart from his duty. The protagonist thinks it would have been the right decision for Cain to serve the duchy's treasure, Babel von Agnes, rather than him if he had looked at the future, then smirks and, with a sarcastic grin, refers to Cain as eccentric. Meanwhile, his mother, the most beautiful lady, Lucia, calls him, and he rushes to meet her. As she embraces him, he bursts into tears, asserting that he will protect her from now on. Later at night, he thanks the heavens for giving him another chance to return to his younger days, tainted with regret. Determinedly, he vows to change his path this time around, shedding the timidity that once defined him not as Joshua von Agnes, the disdained offspring of a stable worker, but as Joshua Sanders, the most formidable spear in the annals of the continent's history. On the other hand, at Agnes Duchy's mansion, Chiffon briefs the Duke that Rebecca has paid a visit, and is in the reception room and reveals that Count Rebecca didn't come alone this time as he came with Miss Iceland, to which the Duke with a deep sigh wonder whether he wants to put an end to this. An uncomfortable visitor who has suddenly come for Count Agnes, Count Fonsel Jin Rebecca, though he is of lower status compared to the Duke, is someone who can't be disregarded because of his influence within the Empire. His daughter Iceland Jin Rebecca is one of the talented people being obstructed carefully alongside Babel. She is recognized as a prodigious magic user, having entered the second tier of classes at 9. In a world where some are cursed with the inability to wield mana due to their genetics, others are blessed with an innate proficiency in its manipulation, the recipients of mana's favor. Iceland stands as one who has been bestowed with the blessing of mana. The blessing of mana, often referred to as the god's finest gift to magicians, endows its recipient with the ability to sense and interact with mana without having to learn it. Chiffon proceeds to apprise the master that Earl Babel will soon reach the age of 15 in the upcoming year, which likely has him in a state of anticipation, considering that his official coming-of-age ceremony is less than 3 years away. The Duke ponders the matter, reflecting on the presence of Lady Cheryl and how it might factor into Babel's circumstances. The 5 duchies of the Avalon Empire wielded significant influence within the empire, each in their distinct manner. Lady Cheryl, a member of the Font family, secured a duchy status based purely on their considerable wealth. The adjutant notes that, as he previously mentioned, considering the Font duchy, it might be more prudent to choose Lady Cheryl, to which the Duke concurs, stating that he always feels the same thing. But that's unfortunate. The Duke of Agnes possesses an insatiable appetite for talents, rivaling his thirst for military might. He's an individual who appraises others solely based on their abilities, such is the nature of the ruler of Agnes Duchy. Suddenly, the Duke stands still and inquires about Joshua's well-being and reveals that he told Joshua he would give Iceland to him. His revelation takes Chiffon aback, contemplating the match between Lady Iceland, who has been bestowed with the blessing of mana, to the mana-disabled Joshua, who has been afflicted with the mana curse. In contrast, Joshua is standing near a partially ruined palace with broken pathways and dilapidated towers. Joshua ascends the old cliff located north of the Agnes Duchy's garden. Before he returned, he used to climb this place because he wanted to be closer to his deceased mother, and there he discovered a hidden tunnel where he found Lucia, his cherished spear. He nips at his thumb, allowing blood drops to drip onto the ground. Suddenly, an incandescent portal materializes in a surprising turn of events, casting its radiant glow over the surroundings. He enters the gateway and lands in a different world, where he finds a partially ruined palace with broken pathways and dilapidated towers. He steps into the castle, wondering whether it's the same temple because when he first discovered this place, it wasn't in ruins like this, and Lucia was located on the altar in the center of the temple, wrapped in chains. However, this time there is just a metal stick instead of Lucia. He steps toward the metal rod, and when he grasps it, a sudden surge of sparks envelops him. Soon, everything turns into a pure white landscape, and he is taken aback to see the metal rod hanging in the air. To his astonishment, the baton responds, asserting it isn't a mere metallic stick but rather the demonic god's artifact, Lucia. This revelation catches Joshua off guard as he grapples with the realization that the spear he wielded in countless battles was, in fact, a relic of a demonic god. He notices that Lucia's appearance has changed, and amid his contemplation, Joshua ponders whether this transformation occurred because the spear journeyed back in time with him. However, his thoughts are interrupted by the baton's assertion that the concept of time doesn't apply here. It further imparts that 2 energies within Joshua's body will gradually erode his lifespan over time. prompting a deep sense of concern and urgency. The baton advises Joshua to swiftly regain his initial strength, emphasizing that this is the sole method to quell their restlessness. It explains that this approach will enable him to harness the two serene energies within him. He must strive to attain the magic spearmanship stage 4 to achieve this. This guidance underscores the importance of his journey toward restoring balance and control. Joshua recalled that the ancient spear technique he was learning, the magic spearmanship, this spear technique he discovered with his mana technique, had incredible potency. In the realm, all the knights of the Ignorant content used swords as their only weapon, and spears were widely considered weak and crude toys. However, before his return, only a handful of people could rival him in battle. Back then, he had reached the pinnacle of magic spearmanship at stage 5. If prowess were measured in ranks, rank knights could fashion swords from mana, while those deemed masters were accorded the illustrious absolute rank. Even within the 8-tiered hierarchy of the magic spearmanship, Joshua stood at stage 5, reigning as the Empire's paramount knight. Now he mused that achieving stage 4 could place him on par with the mightiest B-rank knights. The attainment of this level shouldn't prove excessively challenging, yet his concern lay in the constraint of time. Given his current standing, training his mana from the ground up presented a formidable challenge, casting a shadow of melancholy over his aspirations. Lukia's reassurance blankets Joshua's worries, promising he can employ mana without harmful consequences up to a certain threshold as long as it remains by his side. Joshua abruptly ponders whether it's possible, to which Lukia encourages him to polish his skills. It insisted that once he attained the pinnacle and Lukia regained its full potential, Joshua would surely achieve his dreams. Abruptly, a burst of light emerges, transporting Joshua back to the central altar within the temple, where he gets that metal baton Lukia. He firmly grasps Lukia, recalling its words that as long as he has it by his side, he should be able to use mana to a certain extent. Joshua closed his eyes, allowing the mana from his surroundings to flow into him. He easily activated the first stage of magic spearmanship, which enabled him to absorb considerable mana from the air around him, an unparalleled skill on the continent. With this stage of spearmanship, he can concentrate mana in a single spot and launch forward to pierce in a single explosive burst. He counts it as the beginning and plans to train hard to take everything away from Caesar Van Britten. On the other hand, in Agnes Duchy's guest reception room, the receptionist announces the arrival of Duke Agnes. Cheryl Dyfont, daughter of House Font, greets the Duke while he wonders what brings her here so late. In response to his inquiry, Count Cox Ron Vajan, a vassal of House Font, apologizes for Cheryl's persistent insistence that led to their sudden visit. Cox is a prominent vassal of House Font and oversees their financial matters. The Duke assures him there's no need to apologize and mentions that it's unfortunate how seldom they get to meet despite residing in the same city, making this encounter opportune. Amidst their conversation, she playfully quips that she's heard rumors of Babel attaining the rank of a C-rank knight, and she amusingly contemplates the idea of establishing herself as a prodigy too, which startles the Duke. Cox abruptly apologizes, stating that she is immature. However, the Duke's response is magnanimous. He reassures Cox that her behavior doesn't bother him and affirms that it's perfectly acceptable for a girl her age to behave in such a spirited manner. Duke Agnes then turns around to greet Fonsel and express his apologies for momentarily forgetting their presence. Iceland Jin Rebecca, Count Fonsel Jin Rebecca's daughter, greets the Duke. Meanwhile, Cheryl is annoyed by Iceland's presence while Cox tries to calm her down. She then inquires about the rumor she's heard regarding Sir Duke's illegitimate child defeating 3 centurions, expressing her curiosity about its accuracy. Cox reluctantly raises his voice to refrain her from speaking oddly, but she responds that she is just asking because she is curious. Chiffin informs Lady Cheryl that it's just a rumor, and unveils that young Master Joshua suffers from a frail constitution and bears the burden of the mana curse. Chiffin asserts that given these factors, Joshua is unlikely to have defeated 3 centurions. This revelation startles Count Rebecca, who ponders the validity of such information regarding the second Earl's mana curse. In response, the Duke invites Rebecca to assess Joshua, given his standing as a 5th-class magician in the Empire. He suggests that a magician's heightened sensitivity to mana might offer better insight than a knight's. Rebecca concurs and plans to use this opportunity to score some points with Duke Agnes. Chiffin intervenes and humbly proposes to the Duke that they should confirm Joshua's condition to ascertain the truth behind the rumors. He suggests that they could investigate if there's a natural deficiency and validate the accuracy of the rumor. The Duke sternly urges how he plans on confirming it, to which the adjutant asks that if he gives the order, he can summon an appropriate knight from his banner to compete with Joshua. Duke Agnes assert whether he wants a knight of the Order of the Crimson Knights to compete with a 9-year-old opponent. The adjutant reasons that if Joshua's strength matches the rumors, the competitor must be at that level, and conveniently, they have a fitting individual within their ranks. With a vicious look, he then asks that if the Duke sees it in person, he will be fully satisfied. The next day, Chiffin summons Cain to his office, reflecting on the report he received regarding the incident involving the Centurions. Cain affirms that the report is accurate. Chiffin then acknowledges that according to military law, he holds the authority to carry out instant punishment, but he questions whether Cain believes this course of action was hastened. Upon Cain's explanation that they intended to cause harm to a lady from the Duke's household, the adjutant, Chiffin, becomes infuriated, speculating whether those individuals dared to target Lady Vanessa. Corrected by Cain that it was not Lady Vanessa but Lady Lucia, the Duke's second wife, Chiffin leans back in his seat and questions the necessity of incapacitating 2 Centurions for the sake of a concubine. The banner guy, exuding confidence, firmly states that Lady Lucia holds a position of respect within the Duke's household and that she is beyond the reach of ordinary soldiers. He emphasizes that their actions were both an affront and a brazen challenge to the Duke's authority. Chiffin, moved by his confident demeanor, urges that they will overlook this later, but for now, there is a job for him to do next. Then reveals that today Cain has to spar with young Master Joshua, which startles the Knight of the Order of the Crimson Knights. Additionally, the adjutant explains that through this incident, they aim to determine whether the young master is indeed burdened with a mana curse. He expresses confidence that the outcome will reaffirm the presence of natural mana or its deficiency. However, he notes that Duke Agnes remains unconvinced, and if this uncertainty persists, it could potentially obstruct the progress of young Master Babel. Cain responds with doubt about whether he believes young Master Babel might be sidelined due to this situation, to which Chiffin rebukes him for talking nonsense. He firmly asserts that young Master Babel is an unparalleled genius, a rarity not easily found anywhere on the continent. He questions if Cain truly believes Babel could be bested by a mere pebble. In response, Cain secretly acknowledges that the pebble he observed was a meteor capable of tearing across the vast expanse of the sky before crashing down to the earth. Chiffin commands Cain to discreetly infuse mana into Joshua during their sparring session, ensuring no one notices. He explains that if Joshua is indeed afflicted with the curse of mana, his body will reject the mana injection. In the case of a mana-cursed individual receiving a mana infusion, it would act like poison, leading to death within 10 days. His intentions stun Cain. He knows that the adjutant is biased towards young Master Babel's side, but he can't believe he could show his true self this explicitly. Chiffin then commands him to wait in the military armament because the Duke and Count will soon be brought there. While waiting in the apartment, Cain contemplates that even though it's an order from his direct superior, he plans that as long as he is watching over young Master Joshua, however, he has no plans to harm him. Meanwhile, the protagonist arrives there and confirms that he heard they are sparring, to which Cain concurs, stating that it's to confirm Earl's abilities and it's Sir Duke plans to order a spar. Joshua smirks while gazing at his fist, asserting that the Duke has recognized some of his abilities, so he plans to take it on. Cain urges the protagonist not to worry about it and clarifies that he has no intention of sparring against them. In response, the protagonist retorts that Cain's statement makes him laugh or wonder whether Cain wants to gauge his abilities, which Cain abruptly denies. Joshua confidently states that the right to choose the master is an exclusive authority to knights. However, Joshua has the authority to choose his subordinate, and has no plans to entrust his back to someone as insignificant and weak as that, which stuns Cain. Then assert that Cain should do his best if he wants to see the real self of Joshua. Soon, Duke Agnes and his guests arrive at the military armament, pondering whether they have introduced themselves. While Cain greets the Duke, Chiffin thinks Joshua has no etiquette towards Duke Agnes. However, Joshua greets the Duke as well, which impresses the Duke, who ponders that he doesn't remember separately teaching him etiquettes. But he is good at this, while Chiffin seems frustrated. Joshua remarks that he just learned from watching. The Duke wonders whether he knows what is going on, to which the protagonist remarks that he was told that the Duke wanted to test him. Chiffin intervenes, remarking that there seems to be a misunderstanding because this is not the test from the Duke but his consideration because he wants to examine and classify Joshua's handicap to cure his ailment properly. At that time, Joshua realizes that the Chiffin bastard is on Babel's side, orchestrating this situation to kill him. The Duke asks Cain whether he is ready, to which the guy concurs, asserting that he is ready to spar. Duke Agnes assert that Guy is misunderstanding something because Joshua's spar opponent is not him. It's Joshua's older brother Babel. With a malicious grin, Babel feigns that this older brother cherishes him. However, Joshua is aware of his underlying motives. The Duke informs that they will be using wooden swords for training since it's only competitive training. Babel abruptly grasps one and casually brandishes it at Joshua, stating that he has no intentions of doing his absolute best. The protagonists grin as he knows that Babel and Chiffin are trying to make a show because they want to kill him, so he plans to show them properly what showmanship is. He breaks a wooden mop to get a stick and declares that it's enough for him, which startles the Duke and the adjutant. Lady Cheryl scoffs at his choice, finding it hilarious as he selects a mere stick for sparring against a mana user. Chiffin tells Joshua it isn't a joke and ponders what he plans to do with a stick like that. Duke Agnes halts the adjutant and asserts whether Joshua is sure about his choice, which the protagonist confidently concurs with. The Duke then commands everyone to have a seat and cautions Babel not to use mana. Babel urges his dad not to worry about it, considering that using mana on that stable cleaner guy would be a waste. Babel questions Joshua's intention to face him with a stick and mockingly suggests that a wooden rod is fitting for someone who used to clean horse excrement and can't even speak. The sparring begins with the Duke's signal, and the two opponents engage in a battle of strength. Joshua employs a subtle mana technique, catching his older brother off guard. However, Babel quickly regains his composure and dismisses Joshua's technique, asserting that Joshua might learn this technique somewhere, but it's futile. The protagonist contemplates that his brother is considered a C-rank knight but is simple and only has his speed. Seizing the opportunity, Joshua successfully manages to strike Babel's arm, who then attempts to manipulate his younger brother by belittling him as an illegitimate child who won't even be able to get his name on the ranks. However, Joshua remains focused and swiftly strikes Babel's stomach with his wooden baton. He then employs a mana burst which shatters Babel's wooden sword and startles the Fonsel Rebecca, who realizes it's mana. Now realizing that Joshua isn't as weak as he thought, Babel abruptly unleashes his sword, declaring that he can't accept it and that the title of Duchy's successor will only belong to him. Unfazed by the circumstances, he confronts Babel, boldly claiming that he will overcome the challenges the Duchy poses. Sensing the seriousness of the situation, the Duke abruptly halts them in a menacing tone from further confrontation, declaring that he will not forgive them if they continue to fight any longer. Meanwhile, Chiffin is stunned and can't comprehend that Joshua possessed mana at the age of 9 because this is the first time in history. In other words, it's a fantastic feat. Duke Agnes urged the adjutant whether he isn't satisfied yet. However, Chiffin still seems incredulous as he has never seen that before. Meanwhile, judging from whatever he has seen, Rebecca confirms that it indeed was mana, and it's not much compared to Earl Babel when considering the amount of mana. Still, it's a different type of mana than the one they know, especially regarding its concentration. All that happens takes them aback, while the Duke is impressed by Joshua for being able to use mana at the age of 9. Chiffin tries to intervene, but Duke Agnes sternly gazes at him, then addresses Joshua, informing him that he needs to discuss some matters, and instructs him to come to his room later that night, which startles Chiffin and Babel, while Joshua abruptly agrees. Amid all this, Babel clenches his fist tightly in frustration because his father, Duke Agnes, has never summoned anyone to his room before. He cannot fathom how a mere stable cleaner could turn into someone who commands such attention. Later at Agnes Duchy's guest room, Lady Cheryl jumps thrillingly, amused by all that happened in military armament. Despite Cox's attempts to placate her and encourage a composed demeanor, her amusement remains undiminished. The notion of a 9-year-old possessing mana strikes her as implausible and amusing. While acknowledging her initial reservations about Joshua's status as an illegitimate child, she declares her determination to make him a part of her world. Later, within the confines of Duchy's mansion, when Chiffin informs her about Babel's defeat, Emperor Marcus' older sister Duchess Agnes, Vanessa von Agnes, slaps him and urges him to tell again. Chiffin reaffirms that her son Babel was defeated by Joshua, inciting further rage from the Duchess, who delivers another blow to his face. She is astounded that the son of a concubine possesses mana and has surpassed Babel. She then inquires about the Duke's view on all that, to which the adjutant humbly responds that it seems that he will take Joshua to a CADI. He adds that since the Duke has seen Joshua's talent, he must want to keep Joshua next to him to observe him more. He alerts the Duchess that they will be put in a precarious situation if they let it be. However, she retorts that would never happen if the adjutant had properly fulfilled his responsibilities. Chiffon asserts there is no need to worry because he has a way of going about this, and she abruptly inquires what it is. He clarifies that it is just a hypothesis. However, he is sure that Duke Agnes might attempt to publicly declare Joshua as a C-rank mana user throughout the Empire, to which the Duchess asserts that he is still spouting nonsense. Furthermore, he states that not only the Duke but also the two counts also witnessed Joshua's prowess firsthand. And even if it weren't mana, the Duke would make him take the test to be knighted officially as a C-rank knight to check his mana in an actual fight through a battle with a royal knight. Upon learning about Joshua's upcoming battle with a knight, a spark of rivalry ignites in the Duchess's eyes, and she intends to contact her uncle for the first time in a while. On the other hand, a firm knock resonates on the door, and Joshua steps inside at the Duke's permission. When Joshua kneels to greet the Duke, he ponders who he is, and the protagonist responds that he is Joshua von Agnes. The Duke takes note of the considerable change in Joshua's appearance since their previous encounter, and Joshua acknowledges this observation by remarking that a significant time has indeed transpired. Duke Agnes then inquire whether he hates his father, but Joshua denies, asserting that in a situation where he needs to be wary of the royal castle, the Duke wouldn't have been able to expect much from him. He then urges that he has a request, and the Duke wonders whether he expects an apology. Joshua knows that a deceptive apology wouldn't mean anything in a cruel educational environment, so he clarifies that his request concerns being taken to Acadia. The Duke questions Joshua's certainty about his decision and seeks the rationale behind the request. Joshua confidently presents two reasons. Firstly, the succession to the duchy has been reserved for Babel until now, so to avert potential turmoil, it would be wise to remove him from the equation. As the Duke contemplates, he realizes that Joshua possesses more than just a battle talent if he had raised him systematically earlier. Joshua then proceeds to the second reason, affirming that it revolves around the Duke's inclination to retain him due to greed. He explains that attaining a level surpassing the Duke's own could potentially revitalize Agnes' duchy, elevating it to new heights. Such a feat might even lead to a situation where the duchy need not harbor concerns regarding the royal castle's influence. The Duke acknowledges that Joshua seems to imply that he possesses the potential to fulfill those expectations. Joshua confidently asserts his belief that he won't let the Duke down. Duke Agnes admires Joshua's audacity for speaking so boldly in front of him and contemplates if there is a way to do both things simultaneously. Joshua concurs, stating that he must consider sending him to the academy at Acadi. The noble children of the Avalon Empire must study at the academy at Acadi for 6 years, from 10 to 15 years old. It's even possible to graduate early for skilled professionals like Babel. The reason the royal castle made such a system is so that they can take the children hostage through the academy to hold the nobles' loyalty towards the royals in check and to win over outstanding talents. The Duke admits that he will be coming to the city with him. Also, he commits to teach Joshua personally if he is close by. Joshua recognizes this as a remarkable chance to learn swordsmanship from one of the 5 masters of the Empire. Nonetheless, he points out that while the Duke excels in swordsmanship, he himself intends to specialize in using a spear as his weapon of choice. This declaration leaves the Duke taken aback, as he had been uncertain due to Joshua's utilization of a seemingly ineffectual stick during their one-on-one duel. In response, Duke Agnes channels an immense surge of mana directed at Joshua, questioning if he intends to wield a spear. The sheer magnitude of this mana force makes it challenging for Joshua to maintain his footing. However, as much as Agnes is proud of his sword, he also has much pride in his spear. Nonetheless, just as Agnes takes immense pride in his swordsmanship, Joshua, too, possesses a deep-seated sense of pride in his proficiency with a spear. With resolve, the protagonist proclaims his intent to vanquish any obstacles that cross his path using a spear, regardless of whether they belong to the esteemed group of the 9 stars to which the Duke belongs. In response, Duke Agnes asserts that if that's his intention, he will personally demonstrate the merit of a spear, declaring that he will test Joshua's prowess. The protagonist knows that Agnes is one of the 9 stars, so he takes it as an opportunity that won't come again. Joshua then proposes that if he passes the test, the Duke has to accept the request he has made. Duke Agnes agrees to this condition, stating that should Joshua pass the test, he will be allowed to wield a spear and commit to addressing Joshua's specific request. However, if he achieves the opposing result, he must follow the Duke's command. The protagonist smirks, fully aware that the Duke will likely command him to attend the academy and focus on swordsmanship. Nevertheless, he is confident that this scenario won't transpire, as he harbors no intention of concealing his remarkable abilities. On the other hand, the Duchess seeks out a magician to establish a magical connection with her uncle through an oracle. As they exchange pleasantries and inquire about each other's welfare, her uncle probes whether the duchy is still a suitable place to reside. With a cunning glint in her eyes, she replies with a hint of malevolence, asserting that an incident has befallen the duchy, and she seeks to request a favor. Later, Joshua steps out of the Duke's room, acknowledging the impressive prowess of someone who holds the title of a master. He comments that the experience was remarkable and reveals that his body still trembles from the encounter. Shortly after, Babel arrives and approaches Joshua, requesting a conversation. When the protagonist declines, explaining that there's no matter to discuss, Babel's demeanor becomes more ominous as he conveys his intent to engage in another battle. Joshua perceives a distinct change in his brother's gaze, driven by an intense desire to triumph, a pure passion for combat, and an unwavering determination never to taste defeat. Then smirks in a concurring way and ponders whether Babel is confident about his decision. On the other hand, at the Kaltika Palace within the Avalon Empire's Grand Imperial Castle, a knight relays the entirety of the situation to Emperor Marcus van Britten. The Emperor contemplates whether it's indeed true that yet another child possessing the potential to become one of the stars has emerged from the Agnes Empire. He questions whether his elder sister, Vanessa, has been concealing someone of this nature. The knight confirms this to be accurate and unveils further details. It's not the Duchess's own child, but rather an illegitimate offspring of a woman who served as a maid within the duchy. Marcus is intrigued by the situation and remarks that Babel alone is a precious asset they might not encounter again within the Empire. However, he expresses a sense of envy towards Duke Agnes, who now possesses two remarkable individuals as treasures. The knight supplements this by mentioning that the princes are also exceptionally talented individuals destined to make waves in the world. Nevertheless, Marcus refutes this notion, asserting his certainty that while a few might be born with the aptitude for becoming emperor, they often lack significant battle prowess. The emperor's assessment of individuals seems to fall short, even though the present princes are also endowed with remarkable abilities. This could be attributed to the fact that Emperor Marcus himself possessed formidable strength akin to that of a master, leading his expectations to become exceedingly stringent. Perhaps due to this background, his pursuit of exceptional talents verges on the excessive. Marcus reflects on the possibility that if Duke Agnes is no longer concealing his second child, it could imply that this child possesses a capability similar to Babel's. Yet, the knight divulges unexpected information that this newcomer has defeated Babel, leaving Marcus aback. This revelation prompts him to contemplate whether this individual is older than Babel, but Knight reveals he is a 9-year-old kid. The Emperor can't comprehend how a child who turned 9 this year beat the continent's best, and then assumes that people will be making a move to try to see that child's skills for themselves soon. The knight concurs that his prediction is accurate because soon, there will be a dispatch of the Imperial Castle's Order of Knights on the request from Agnes Duchy to sum up the kid's mana. After all, it is suspected that the child is already close to the level of a C-rank knight. Marcus is taken aback by the revelation of a 9-year-old C-rank knight, recognizing it as a stroke of fortune for the duchy's empire. Intrigued to witness this exceptional knight, he regrets that he won't have the chance due to the political intrigues surrounding the situation. Nevertheless, he orders his aide to dispatch a prince to accompany them, believing that an emperor should possess the discernment to identify exceptional talents. In contrast, the step-brothers are engaged in a fierce duel, and Joshua seems dominant as he gathers his mana in his fist and smacks Babel aside. Babel's ire is stoked by the fact that Joshua can amass mana directly into his bare fist, amplifying the force of his strike even without a weapon. Meanwhile, the protagonist confidently asserts that he can discern Babel's intentions from his expression and declare that he will help him realize how scary the martial arts Babel looks down upon is. Babel tries to thrust his sword at Joshua, but he counters by utilizing an aura explosion, effectively deflecting his attack and overpowering him. Babel remains unwilling to fully acknowledge it, though he grudgingly comprehends that the bastard is remarkably stronger than him. Radiating a formidable aura, the protagonist issues a stern caution, urging Babel to elevate his strength and never forget the sensation of defeat suffered at the hands of someone he had underestimated. Joshua asserts that if he acts according to his own wishes, he will mercilessly tear Babel apart, reducing him to mere shreds for daring to insult him and his mother. However, the protagonist claims to let him go this time since he sees a pure passion for military power for the first time in Babel's eyes, then issues a stern warning that if Babel's attitude doesn't change, he will render Babel incapable of ever holding a sword with that hand again. As he departs, he reminds Babel not to overlook the evident gap between their eye levels, which wells up his eyes. The next morning, the protagonist feels fatigued from exerting excessive mana without respite. His mana control has become more fluid since he absorbed Lukia's main self, yet the existence of side effects raises questions about his body's capacity to manage such a mana load. A knock on the door startles him, and assuming it's Kane, he quickly opens it. However, there is someone he doesn't know, so he asks her to introduce herself. She introduces herself that she is Cheryl, the daughter of Font Duchy. Trying to be candid, Cheryl mentions that she knows Joshua's 3-year age gap, which she believes allows her to speak comfortably. While stepping inside his room, she suggests he can address her as Big Sis and proposes to continue their conversation. But Joshua halts her way, menacingly urging her to leave immediately, and slams the door shut in her face. Shortly after, there's another knock on the door, and Joshua's frustration escalates as he assumes it's Cheryl again, not grasping his intention to be left alone. When he opens the door, he is ready to reprimand her, but to his surprise, it's not Cheryl but Kane. Joshua's anger subsides, and he apologizes for his earlier outburst, as he gets the wrong person. Joshua then queries Kane about the progress of the tasks he assigned. The knight reports that he has completed the preparations as instructed but remains puzzled about the reasons behind the Earl's requests. Joshua confidently asserts that Kane must trust and follow his lead. Eventually, he will understand the purpose. The next day at Duke Agnes' large sparring field, where all the Centurions have assembled, 2 Centurion knights approach Rolls. They question him about the whereabouts of his comrades, Lloyd and Gord, speculating whether it's accurate that Joshua defeated them. Without responding, Rolls turns his face around, which prompts them to realize that his behavior has been unusual for some time. They speculate whether his persistent harassment of Joshua might have somehow resulted in his affliction being transferred to Rolls, one of the wonders who has summoned the Centurions to assemble at this location. His companion replies that a member of the Order of the Crimson Knights issued the call, and he anticipates that the training for the day will be rigorous. Shortly after, Chiffin arrives, accompanied by Joshua. They extend greetings to the Centurion Knights, but Joshua's presence sparks unease within Rolls, who wonders about the reason behind Earl Joshua's attendance. The Knight Chiffin announces that a new instructor will assist them with today's lesson. Joshua introduces himself, stating that he will be leading their training for the day, which startles them. He emphasizes that as Centurions under Duke Agnes, their role is crucial as commanders on the front line during battles. Due to this, their skills are of utmost importance. He informs them that he's there to assess their abilities and menacingly urges everyone to approach him. The Centurions mock him as they think he is playing around. Chiffin suggests that even though he is the Earl, the Centurions might cause dire conditions, while the Centurions sarcastically remark that Joshua might get hurt, which will insult them. Joshua steps down the stairs and brandishes the spear at Rolls to inquire whether he also believes the other Centurion's remarks. In response, Rolls abruptly denies, asserting that he would never think that. The protagonist sternly admonishes him, rebuking him for not fulfilling his promise to relay the message as instructed. The Centurion guy abruptly kneels and implores for forgiveness. However, Joshua maintains his firm stance, declaring that he won't grant forgiveness a second time, recounting Rolls' prior attempt to harm his mother. He states that he could have killed Rolls for that act but chose to provide him with an opportunity instead. However, Joshua laments that he has squandered that chance, reflecting on whether he aspires to follow the same path as Lloyd and Gort. The sudden revelation startles the other Centurions, leading them to wonder if the Earl had confronted and defeated those two. Rolls keeps pleading for another chance. However, the protagonist asserts that there is no second chance. However, because he is a Centurion of Duke Agnes, Joshua declares he will protect Rolls' pride. He challenges Rolls to raise his sword, offering a unique proposition. If he manages to defeat him, Joshua will overlook his prior confrontation as though nothing transpired. Rolls mulls over the proposal, thinking he should seize the opportunity since his adversary is still young. He believes that if he performs well, there might be a chance for him to emerge victorious. With determination, he readies his sword and launches an attack against Joshua. However, the protagonist remains steadfast and employs the lightning slash technique, effortlessly repelling Rolls' assault and tumbling him aside. Joshua then declares that judging an opponent on their appearance will result in his life being taken on the battlefield. He urges that if anyone still has suspicions about his abilities, they can confront him again. In response, the 23rd Centurion leader steps forward and greets Earl Joshua. This gesture prompts all the Centurion leaders to express their respect and greetings. Chiffon is deeply impressed by this display and is excited to witness how Earl Joshua has lived up to his expectations, and he pledges his full support to Earl Joshua's endeavors. On the other hand, in Duke Agnes' guest room, Lady Cheryl is in despair due to Joshua's cold demeanor. Suddenly, Cox barges in there and excitedly informs that the Order of the Imperial Knights will soon arrive at the duchy. Despite the news, Cheryl's expressions remain unchanged as she puts her head down on a pillow, asking him not to bother her for the day. Cox abruptly ponders whether she is hurt somewhere, as she hasn't looked great since the morning if something happened. Cheryl exclaims in frustration not to bother her, urging him to follow her father's instructions. Cox responds that he momentarily forgot about the Lord's orders, to which Cheryl reminds him not to lose sight of their purpose for being there. Cox apologizes and assures her he will prioritize carrying out their Lord's orders. In contrast, Duke Agnes summons Joshua to his office to inquire whether he executed a centurion. The protagonist concurs, acknowledging that the Duke must be familiar with the Centurion's behavior and disrespectful comments about his mother. He follows military law by immediately executing the Centurion who insulted a noble. The Duke wonders that if he himself had been there, he would have sliced them with a blade. However, he asks Joshua what just happened is unfortunate. Joshua clarifies that the incident occurred for a different reason. He explains that just a few days ago, he was seen as the son of a concubine, treated as lowly, and even thrown into the stables. He says it's difficult for him to gain their approval merely because he has gained strength, while the other reason is that he wanted to plant fear and shock in them, so they could never mistreat him and his mother again. Joshua declares that he wanted to show that he also had the Duke's blood. He had to demonstrate where all the Centurions were gathered properly. Duke Agnes gets up from his seat, asserting him to finish this discussion and that Joshua should slowly prepare to leave for his Mana evaluation today because the Order of the Imperial Knights has been dispatched. Joshua concurs that he will leave soon as his preparations are over. Outside the Duke's office, Armstrong, the first leader of the Order of the Golden Mane Knights, is surprised that 2C rank who haven't come of age would come from their duchy. When Chiffon frustratedly retort that one of them is a son of a concubine, Armstrong mocks him, stating that he is pissed that his position is at stake because young Master Babel lost to young Master Joshua, due to which Chiffon starts quarreling with him. Soon, the Duke arrives there, remarking that the Order of the Imperial Knights is about to arrive, and they are already bickering. They greet the Duke while Armstrong privately contemplates if that person is Joshua and remarks that he doesn't seem strong. Shortly after, the caravan arrives, prompting Chiffon to be startled to see a whole battalion for the Imperial Palace and wonder who could have arrived. As Caesar Van Britten disembarks from his royal carriage, Duke Agnes is startled because he is the fourth prince, while Joshua can't believe this moment has arrived so soon. Several days earlier, Knight Captain Sir Joker of the First Army of the Imperial Knights was seen berating another knight, incredulous that a mere knight would presume to give him orders. Unexpectedly, a mysterious individual appeared, informing Joker that a mission from Madame Vanessa had been assigned to him, and he had to carry it out. Fast forward to the present, Joker arrives at the duchy with Prince Caesar, driven by the malicious determination to ensure that the individual known as Joshua never wields a sword again. Caesar comments that the rumored Earl Joshua stands before him. However, Joshua's expression turns fierce at the sight of Caesar. When Caesar's adjutant advises Joshua to show respect in the presence of a prince, the protagonist retorts with sarcasm, stating that under the Empire's sky, there can only be one son aside from the lord they serve. He asserts that the respect of all knights in the country is reserved solely for the emperor, and reflects on whether there is any reason to respect the self-proclaimed fourth prince, whose identity isn't clear, while Caesar's expressions seem unbothered. However, his remark enrages Valmont Don Braun, Knight Vice Captain of the Ninth Order of Imperial Knights, who steps ahead, wielding his sword, asserts that Joshua must be out of his mind and revealing that he heard Joshua is a son of a concubine who used to clean horse dung until recently. The tense situation escalates when Armstrong draws his sword in defense of Joshua. Valmont cynically remarks that it's not as if it's for Duke Agnes and wonders if he is covering up for that lowly child of a concubine, to which Armstrong asserts that Sir Joshua is also a legitimate part of the Agnes Duchy. The Duke menacingly intervenes, reminding them they are in front of the prince, and warns them not to act recklessly, then urges Joshua to apologize to the prince for the turmoil he has caused because of his hasty words and deeds. Caesar comments that the situation is acceptable since Joshua's perspective isn't entirely unjustified, while his adjutant interjects, cautioning the prince about the potential repercussions on the imperial family's authority. Caesar responds that as a relatively powerless fourth prince, clinging to his own pride would only subject him to ridicule. He then steps ahead, concurring that Joshua is correct that only the Majesty Emperor deserves the respect of all the knights in the empire. Being a kind prince, Caesar claims to be all right, emphasizing the imperial knights not to worry about it. Also, the knights prove their skills by their own merit. He believes that Earl Joshua is well aware of how worthless the empty words of a knight without any skills are. The protagonist is well aware that, as always, Caesar is trying to change the situation with his silver tongue. However, Joshua remains resolute that things will be different this time around, recalling his intention to seize the opportunity to strike at Caesar's throat when he least expects it. He then walks towards Caesar, claiming he is ready for every challenge. However, his cocky behavior in front of the prince enrages the Joker, who then requests Caesar to leave the mana identification to him as he would like to personally check whether Earl Joshua has sufficient skills to back his speech and actions. Considering the safety of Earl Joshua, Prince Caesar grants permission to Sir Joker to take over, who has surpassed the level of expert B rank because of their difference in rank. Meanwhile, Joker thanks the prince with a malicious grin and claims to assess Joshua's mana precisely. Subsequently, in the Agnes Duchy training hall, everyone takes their seats to witness the impending intense duel. As the Joker notices that Joshua has chosen an iron rod as his weapon, he contemplates whether he is jesting or if he believes they are playing a game. He mocks the protagonist, stating that everything feels easy on him since people around him praise him for having some talent. In response, Joshua fires back with sarcasm, remarking that the Imperial Knights must be selected based on their proficiency in talking rather than their skills, to which the delinquent Joker comments that he will regret his words. Suddenly, Joshua launches an unexpected attack which catches the rivalry off guard. However, he abruptly manages to deflect the attempt and retain his composure, asserting that Joshua's weapon is nothing more than a toy, and declaring that Joshua will be done if he closes the distance. Joshua smirks, recognizing that many adversaries think closing the space between them would be enough to exploit a weakness. However, he's secretly prepared for such situations through rigorous training undertaken a long time ago. Joshua then maintains the distance with consecutive moves and employs the first form, Lightning Slash, while Joker skillfully counters the attack with impressive maneuvering, downplaying its effectiveness. The prince is impressed by Joshua's skills, stating that fighting on equal footing with a B-rank knight at that age is incredible. Not only that, his skills baffle the Imperial Knight Valmont, who wonders what in the world is that spearmanship as he has never seen that technique before. While skillfully evading Joshua's relentless attacks, Joker contemplates that if the duel continues at this pace, it will end prematurely, and this outcome wouldn't bode well for Lady Vanessa as she will snap his head. Feeling the pressure, he decides to take a calculated risk to turn the tide of the test. As the battle unfolds, the protagonist notes that the B-rank knight is indeed operating at a significantly higher level compared to Babel, and the control of mana is getting harder bit by bit, which might cause the holy power and mana to run into each other. Seizing the opportunity, Joker makes his move through gambling. Joshua manages to block it by gathering mana into one point, but his mouth starts gushing blood. The sudden escalation in Joker's mana level catches the attention of Armstrong, who recognizes the danger posed to Joshua. He quickly informs the Duke about the perilous situation. However, the Duke advises him to be patient and continue observing the unfolding events. Joker gains confidence, boosted by his recent successful move, but Joshua remains unfazed. As the battle continues, Joker rapidly advances to execute his next move, aiming to overpower Joshua. However, this action triggers an explosion of mana, capturing the attention and curiosity of everyone watching the duel. Caught off guard by the unexpected surge of power, Joker struggles to comprehend what happened. An unfamiliar force seems to have pushed him back, leaving him bewildered and off balance. Meanwhile, Joshua remains composed and stationary, firmly holding his cherished spear, Lucia. As Joshua anticipates the impending clash of Joker's B-rank sword aura and his own C-rank mana, he recognizes his perilous situation. He knows that a collision between the two forces could lead to severe internal injuries for him. Just as Joker confidently advances towards him, believing his victory is assured, Joshua calls out to his trusted companion, Lucia. In response to his plea, Lucia awakens and exerts its extraordinary power, forcefully pushing Joker back and preventing the collision. This astounding display leaves Chiffin astonished, witnessing the mana-saturated artifact's historical moment in awe-inspiring might. Observing Joshua's exceptional abilities, Prince Caesar acknowledges his unique talent, even though his understanding of battle might be limited, and commands Valmon that it's enough for the test. Meanwhile, Joshua contemplates how Joker must be feeling, having his attack blocked. Joker admits his confusion and acknowledges that this is the end of their bout. Valmont steps in to express gratitude for Joker's efforts and officially announces the conclusion of the test. He is intrigued by how Joshua intercepted Joker's B-rank attack in a mere C-rank Knight Mana test. Valmont is confident in Joshua's prowess and doesn't believe the best genius of the Empire could surpass him. With a sword in hand, he proclaims that, as per the prince's orders, Joshua von Agnes, the second son of Agnes Duchy, has now attained the rank of a C-rank knight. He raises his sword in the traditional knighting gesture, signifying the official recognition of Joshua's new level. As Prince Caesar and a vagrant applaud Joshua's impressive skills, the protagonist's inner thoughts reveal that he has no intention of playing along with this C-rank knight stuff because he doesn't want to show them his weak state. However, he is determined to take revenge on them at a decisive time, as they assaulted him in his past life. Duke Agnes steps ahead and inquires about Joshua's well-being. The protagonist kid notes that this is an impression he hasn't encountered in his past life and responds that he is doing fine. Valmont presents him with the Highness's sword, and Joshua triumphantly raises his sword, thinking that he had never witnessed that before in the entire continent. It was the birth of the youngest mana user. Later that night, a conference occurred in the Agnes Duchy's Grand Conference Room under Duke Agnes's supervision. Count Angel, a vassal of the Agnes Duchy, requested the first leader of the Order of Gold Mane Knights, Armstrong, to report on an important matter. Armstrong reported that all the Gold Mane Knights who had been recently dispatched had suddenly returned. The reason for their return was the significant increase in monsters emerging from the creature's forest. Armstrong explained that the leading cause of the Knights' return was the appearance of a black ogre among the monster mob. The black ogre was the most formidable creature within the black creature's forest, also known as the Monster's Haven. It was a resilient troll that could tear through bodies as if they were made of paper. Only individuals with considerable strength, such as high-ranking magicians of the 4th class or higher or knights with a B rank or higher, could match it in combat. The news of the Black Ogre's presence raised tension among the members of the conference, who began to worry about the possibility of the monster encroaching on their lands. Taking note of their concerns, the Duke assured the assembly that he would personally address this matter and urged them to report the next issue. Armstrong remarks that the next point is regarding the 5 duchies, prompting the Duke to wonder whether there is a separate reason that Cheryl and Cox came here, then instructs the knight to explain that matter privately. Count Angel commands them to raise their hand if anyone has something to report. The adjutant Chiffin abruptly raises his stand, stating he has something about Earl Joshua. A buzz of conversation begins as people start discussing Joshua's recent achievements, particularly his becoming the youngest C-rank knight, surpassing even Earl Babel. Chiffin continues, mentioning that Joshua was initially quite frail to the point of suggesting he had a genetic mana disability. He expresses his perplexity over how Joshua could have transformed from such a state to a C-rank knight so quickly, believing that the explanation can't be solely attributed to talent. He speculated that Joshua might have somehow obtained power from creatures or demonic beings, as he found it challenging to comprehend the situation otherwise. He reasons that Earl Joshua was using a weapon no one had ever seen before and ponders whether artifacts are saturated with magic, the only weapons that can change shape. Furthermore, Earl Joshua's weapon was closer to a spear, and they couldn't think such power could be contained in a mere spear. Chiffin's suspicions made him consider the possibility of demonic magic being involved in Joshua's newfound strength. He presented these thoughts to the gathered individuals, fueling their curiosity and uncertainty about Joshua's abilities. Suddenly, Joshua steps into the conference room and asks Chiffin if he is that curious about his skill, then it should be fine for him to test it personally. He adds that Chiffin should be able to tell whether he borrowed power from a creature if he goes up against him. Chiffin tries to control his anger, contemplating that Bastard is making him wield his sword against someone with his master's blood running through his veins. So if he makes a wrong move, he realizes that any misstep could result in incurring his master's wrath. The protagonist mocks him for hesitating and ponders whether he is scared despite being one of the 4 chief pillars leading the duchy. Chiffin's anger flares, and he stands up with a menacing aura, declaring that Joshua has crossed a line. The atmosphere in the room becomes even more tense due to their confrontation, and his menacing aura causes discomfort in the meeting attendees. The Duke intervenes, attempting to maintain control over the situation. He points out a crucial aspect everyone seems to be overlooking, specifically the presence of the Imperial Order of Knights and the chief magician from the Imperial Castle, Evegrant, during Joshua's mana evaluation. Armstrong adds that if Joshua had utilized power from creatures or demons, at least one of these present experts would have detected it. This revelation injects a new layer of complexity into the discussion. Duke Agnes takes charge of the situation and announces that while the matter concerning Joshua seems to have been partially resolved, it doesn't mean all doubts have been completely cleared. He emphasizes that there are still things they need to investigate and numerous questions they want to ask. The Duke acknowledges that Joshua's rapid growth is a subject of inquiry not only among the vassals but also for him. With a purpose in mind, he proposes a way to properly assess Joshua's strength by accompanying him to the Black Creature's forests. The knights asked the Duke if he planned to go to the Black Forest, as he should leave this all to the knights because it was dangerous for him, and he had to travel to Acadia. Armstrong also agreed with them as he didn't want him to get injured. But the Duke wondered who they were worried about and said he planned to send Joshua to the Imperial Academy after cleaning the Black Forest creatures, because his talent is undeniable. He gives him a fair chance by following the strict rules of the Agnes family. Chiffon was worried that if he got stronger and got beyond their reach, Earl Babel might get pulled into a war of succession, so he decided to make an excuse to keep him away. The protagonist requested his father to let his mother accompany him, but Chiffon said it was impossible as Lady Vanessa might not stand by if his mother went with him. The protagonist questions if he is suggesting the Duke needs permission to do such trivial things, making him speechless, and he realizes he is trying to toy with him. He justified that he didn't want rumors regarding favoritism to spread, but Duke allowed his mother to accompany him. He asked the knights if they objected to his decision, but no one objected before leaving. He instructed Armstrong and Joshua to report with the dispatched knights in his room after the report from the Font family was sorted. While he was leaving, Earl Babel arrived, greeted him, and apologized for being late as he needed some time to ponder, and his father asked him if he had something to report. He called the protagonist, who answered him informally, enraged Chiffon, and told him to watch his manner publicly. The protagonist wonders if he is his spokesman as he always acted like a loyal dog and thinks he couldn't cross some lines because of the Duchess, as he only had skills. He felt that if he got noticed becoming too involved, he could get excommunicated, so he said he informed him because he seemed unaware of courtesies. The protagonist reminded him of the Agnes Duchy law that he should prove himself with his skills, so Babel told him that he was alright. His father thought he had changed as he was acting like a real knight because he wasn't convinced. He told Joshua that he would keep this law in mind, and the protagonist realized that his eyes changed after the last duel. Earl told Duke that he wished to evacuate the position of the formal Agnes heir. Everyone was shocked and wondered if he lost confidence after the talented competitor arrived. But he wanted to have a fair competition, so the Duke agreed to him, so the meeting ended and left. Later, in Duchess Vanessa's room, he is frustrated knowing that Joshua is going to the academy with his mother. Because Earl Babel gives up on his position, she worries that he is her everything. Chiffon assumed he should do his best to convince, but she knew he was stubborn and blamed the protagonist for everything. She asked him what Joshua was doing tomorrow, and he stated that Duke was taking him to the Lock territory. She thought the Barren territory would take 2 days to get there. Chiffon said that Duke wanted to take care of the creatures in the Black Forest. She assumed he left after returning, so she instructed him to notify her that she wanted to dine with him before he left. Later, while the man prepared to depart, he looked at his dawn ring and remembered his meeting with the Duke Agnes, who told him before leaving that he had to throw away the name Agnes, so he gave him the ring as a gift. He stated that he received this ring after helping the owner of the Magic Tower once, and he assumed that if it was the ring of the Magic Tower, this might be the artifact created by the owner. When mana is infused into the ring, it instantly equips the wearer with armor, and Duke tells him that he will learn to use it after investing in the mana. He questioned because it was supposed to be given to the family's heir, but he told him not to be mistaken as he was lending him this because it would be a waste of energy as it would rot in the warehouse. He said enchanted armor, with ab insignia representing each family, would be put on him if he used this ring. This would hide his identity from the insect, and his fake identity is now as heir of an anonymous viscount. He instructed him to select a suitable name, and he realized that the reason behind this might be not to affect Duke Agnew's house. The Duke asked him if he had resent him, but he didn't know about this and thought he would never expect to die in vain in the war between empires after 10 years. He barely saw Duke Agnes's face in his previous life, so he slowly forgets the resentment as time heals the wound. While he was still thinking, Caesar arrived as he heard that he was departing to the capital, Acadi, after the subjugation. He suggested visiting him as it would be helpful, as the imperial family could recommend a knight who would protect them to the order of imperial knights. So he would be able to serve the imperial knights without taking the exams and could enjoy the privilege of eliminating 10 years of compulsory service period after passing it. He wanted to tell him that he was greedy, so he wanted to give them this offer, but he found them disgusting as their laughter was mixed with pretense and hypocrisy. But he had to join the Imperials to get another beloved weapon from his previous life because his gun was sleeping in the secret warehouse of the palace. He said he would think about it later because he was busy now while departing. He thought he wouldn't suffer like in the past, but he would suffer this time. In the lead of Duke Agnes, the Black Creature Forest was formed at a rapid pace. It consisted of a reasonably small group led by the Duke of the country, which is the group of the Order of Crimson Knights, and Armand, the best fourth-class mage in Agnes Duchy. Later, at the Castle of Lock Territory, Robin, the former senior knight, greeted him and apologized as he had to suffer even after his retirement. Viscount Vigo arrived with his daughter and greeted him, but Duke found him the pain in the neck. He scolded Robin as he didn't inform him. But Duke changed the topic, talking about his weight, and the protagonist wonders if he is terrible at reading the room. Viscount looks at Babel and thinks he become more handsome. Then, he looks at the protagonist and wonders who he is. Chiffon tells him that he is the second son of the Lord, and he thinks he is mannerless and wonders when Lady Vanessa has such a grown son. But he whispered that he was not her son. He was mortified and wondered what bloodline he belonged to, so he told him that he didn't belong to the noble family. After knowing that, he glared at him like a dirty kid. Duke gets frustrated as he looks at his son hatefully and asks if he doesn't have something urgent to attend to, but tells him that he prepared food for them. He says that his knights are strong and asks them for confirmation, but they say no. While he was leaving, Vigo requested to accompany him, although he was weak and wouldn't be much help. But he wanted to stand and watch because he was the landlord, and his knights wanted that, too. He asked him if his daughter would stay behind alone, but he said that she would help them. Duke was shocked to know that he would put his child in danger, but she also wanted to help him. She used magic, and a spirit appeared that made them, so he told them that he recently knew that she could use the spiritual arts. He thought it was the magic that only those born with spiritual skills could use. The sages are rarer than magicians, and he never knew he would meet one here. He never heard her name, but she looked familiar. The Duke decided to depart and instructed that his knights would lead and others would stay between them, and he thought that it would be good if he got a sage. The protagonist felt he would figure out about her while they were together, so he would remember it if it was crucial to his plan. Meanwhile, at the Avalon Empire throne room, the man asked if the Black Wind's skill twice, despite being a B-rank expert, even succeeded in the counterattacking. He asked about Evergrande opinion and wanted to know the words as the Empire's best magicians, not as a knight. He asked him how far that boy went, and the knight explained in terms of the Imperial Knights and said that he had to fight Valmon himself, but he fought him one-on-one. There was no way he would lose. He thought that if he were one of the most outstanding people in the Empire, he would lose to opponents like Evergrande, but Valmon and Joshua aren't the same. He wonders if he is still determining if he could win against him, and the knight says that the protagonist will be able to defeat him in 10 years, but not now. He asked if he could win against him alone in the duel, and he didn't reply, so he laughed and thought he would have gone to see him. Emperor Marcus snapped to call Jaqen and ordered him to ensure the boy stayed at the palace for some time. He told him that the prince was already making the preparations as the recommendation letter was delivered to the knights by him. The emperor thought that the 11th and 12th battalions were always unpleasant. They were a ragtag bunch that came because of recommendation. But he instructed him to report everything about him. He thought that if he was that talented, he was suitable for it while surrounded by the beasts fighting with them, and felt that he was screwed. They set up camp in the forest and were going to discuss the plan, but Vigo rushed to him. He said that the creature was right in front of them and that they would initiate the surprise attack in such an open space. Duke asked him how much he knew about the function of the forest and how much attention he had been paying to the woods because he was confused. He was clarified about the time the monsters rush. At night, the monsters spill out of the forest like water and are vicious at the time of the red moon. But the current problem is that their attacks have been getting shorter. He said they don't need to rush in and will come out at night. And Vigo was expecting this from Duke and didn't think about it this way. He instructed his sons to get to their post, and they gathered the woods after the other knights were done. They left with him as he was still in progress. After they left, he thought it was his last chance and went inside the forest, holding his spear while Vigo watched him. Genesis Stone is a magic enhancement item that contains the power of creation, and it is believed that this stone covers every element, but the world has only discovered 5 of them. Those 5 are yet to be found, and they can enhance first circle magic into third circle magic, an item coveted by everyone. He remembered that in the past, there were Genesis stones in the deepest part of the forest. If he could find them, he would be able to control his abundance of advancement of power. An hour passed, but he still didn't reach the center of the forest and was stunned as he saw the black ogre that was blocking the path. He knew he needed to be at least a B-rank knight to take it head on. But it was the solitary monsters, so if he filled Lucia with those energies as he did at the test, he could kill the ogre with no time. He wanted to finish it in a single blow. But the monster roared after the red moon appeared. Its pressure was unbearable, and the beast attacked him. He was stunned, wondering how it found him, but he had to dodge the attack to save himself, and he ran away to hide as he would lose heads. He hid after using the technique the Assassin King had taught him rather than concentrating his mana on the target. He had to maneuver it as if it was covering his body, and it would become one with the objects around after he stopped breathing and forgot his surroundings. His technique worked because the monster didn't notice him and passed by, so he rushed to the forest center and climbed the tree branch but tripped. So the black ogre noticed him, and the monsters from the surroundings also appeared, and he wondered if this was a good thing for him. He wants to test his spearmanship, so he lifts his spear and attacks them using the magic spearmanship stage 2 second form gust. He thought he would have appropriately achieved magic spearmanship stage 2, but he guessed not. He could not bring out half of his power that he could generally do, as he thought there was a limit to the young child's body. Seeing the monster's direction, he couldn't rest like this as they would meet up at the knight's camping, so he needed to find the Genesis to come and join the knight. The knight was on his own when the monster suddenly attacked him, so they announced the emergency. As the demons were attacking the knight, they instructed the medics to take the injured to the dorm. Babel shot the monsters, and one of the knights also killed them. He wondered who he was as he never knew someone skilled would be in the Crimson Knights. He heard the noise and looked back where 1,000 monsters were rushing toward them. After seeing that enormous number send a shiver down their spines, they wanted to retreat. Chiffon scolded and warned them they would receive heavy punishment if they left the campsite, so he ordered the Crimson Knights to form the line. The battle between the monsters and the knights begins even after killing many of them. There is no end to their number because of the sudden appearance of the red moon that is supposed to appear the following midnight. The B-rank monster roared from behind, and he was stunned to see such a high-level monster around him, so he gushed to split it in half. But the beast attacked and threw him back. Knights were worried to see the black ogre approaching as they might get torn into shreds if they got in its way. And the number of other monsters was also not decreasing. Chiffon ordered them to retreat as they became more alive due to the red moon. But Duke Agnes appeared and said that they shouldn't lose their composure, so he decided to take care of them, and with the slight blow of his spearmanship, most of the monsters died. While the remaining were terrified, Chiffon was stunned to know the power of one of the 9 stars of the continent, Master Agnes. After killing the monsters, he passed between them, reached the cliff, and looked down, whereas Duke killed the beast. And his son was stunned, so Vigo told him that his father was that powerful. He wished he would become like that because his blood ran through his veins, and he thought it made sense that he was surprised. He was a child who had never seen something like that, and he remembered the protagonist and went to the commander to ask about him. He wonders if he runs away to live on his own. Knights were stunned and asked if he run away and thought he was different from Babel. He thought it was too much even though he had that fantastic blood running in him, and he shouted at them as the battle hadn't ended yet. They rushed toward them to kill them while the monsters ran away. Knights were amazed to see them like that. They were shocked as the demons were killed by someone and wondered what the matter was. Then, some black ogres appeared and roared. So they spread out, but the monsters attacked them. But the knight told them not to retreat and fight. The commander thought they could eliminate them, but the horde of black ogres appeared. Then he felt the strange aura, and the protagonist used the thunderbolt and killed it. And they were stunned as Joshua Agnes killed the black ogre with twice its normal strength due to the red moon with a single blow. Vigo was more astonished, asked him what trip he used, and wondered how he appeared at good timing after hiding all the time. Because he did not want to believe this, he assumed that the Duke had killed it and ordered his man to go and help the Duke. They were also amazed by his timing and thought the Duke killed the monster because the ogre was challenged to defeat by the B-ranked knights. He doesn't want to be looked down upon, so he surprises them and rushes toward the monster to attack it. While thinking that although he became able to use Bronto's power of decree, He wasn't sure how far his body would be able to handle this and killed the ogre using the thunderbolt wind. Vigo was surprised, and everyone realized he killed the black ogre even though he was a sea-raked knight. They never heard about mana like that and wondered if he was the magic swordsman. Duke wonders how he is standing and assumes he doesn't want to show himself as weak. Armin realizes why he is keeping an eye on him because he is fantastic. He told Duke that seeing how he uses double casting that requires the higher class than the third class, he is the monster who can change the country's history. While talking to him, he left as he saw the protagonist collapsing while the beast was attacking him, so he killed the monster and embraced Joshua. He opened his eyes and looked at his father, thought it was not that bad, then closed it. When he became conscious again, he saw fire. The people were calling for help, and he saw Agnes Duchy and wondered what was happening, and the building was collapsing. He wondered if this was a dream, but it felt too real to be a dream. He saw Babel coming out of the building and wondered if it was the scene where Agnes Duchy was wiped out. He wonders why he has such a dream as this would happen 10 years later, and if he has a precognitive plan because of Bronto's power. He felt the strange wind, after which Anna Velgrace appeared with a high-level spirit wind sea lion, which startled him, and he remembered the daughter of Vigo. He remembered something like that happened between them and wondered if her master was also there, but he was frustrated because he could not hear their conversation. He went close to them, and Babel told her that August wouldn't kneel to such a breed organization. But the man smiled, and the sea lion attacked him. When he looked at his face closely, he realized he was Draxia Velgrace. He woke up and was shocked that his dream was closer to a precognitive dream than an ordinary one. He got up and wondered how much time had passed. He wanted to get out of bed, but his body was still unable to tolerate it. He entered the second stage after the first stage in magic spearmanship, but it was similar to the best C-ranked knights, and he assumed he could go against the B-ranked knights if this were the power of his magic spearmanship against the monsters. He presumed it would be because of the Bronto stone and the precognition, so he decided to dig further into the Genesis stone. The Duke asked him if it was interesting that the red moon, which looked like it would swallow the whole world, was now casting a wonderful moonlight. He told him he would be heading to the academy after returning to Duchy, but his identity wouldn't be Agnes. Instead, he is the son of the fallen Frederick Visconti, someone who desperately trying to raise the fallen Visconti. He agreed because it would do no good to him if he grabbed all the attention as he had to focus on retaining all of his strength. Duke asked him how he knew the cursed name like Draxia Velgrace, but he decided to leave so that he could rest first, and they would leave and return to the state tomorrow. Meanwhile, in the secret room of the Loch Castle, Vigo asks the commander if the lady knows about him, and he thinks that she is turning a blind eye to such a threat. Shiffin told him that she didn't have the opportunity as Joshua to do the errands in the stable, but his powers suddenly awakened. He was stunned because Babel was revived after the close instruction of the Duke. He was astonished as he didn't get the facilities like Babel, yet he defeated the Black Ogre, which most C-ranked knights could not do. He told him the knights thought he was magic, but Vigo didn't believe that and supposed he had contracted with a high-ranking demon. But he was sure that something like that didn't happen as he was with him all the time and didn't sense any demonic energy. But he decided to keep an eye on him because his daughter Anna Velgrace was also in his academy, so he could quickly get the information from him. He suggested he pay attention to this matter before he started desiring the position of the heir, as things would get complicated, and left. Later, the man rushed to her at the Agnes estate and informed her that Joshua was returning after completing the subjugation. She was sad, then he wondered why she was unhappy and asked him why he was worried because he didn't like him. But things changed because he was the son of the concubine and the first person to use the mana at age 10. He told her that although they had enough wealth, they couldn't buy some things and asked her if she knew why Duke Pontier sent them there, and she said that it was because of the mercenaries king. He is the sword master of a commoner who rose to rank and is one of the 12th superhumans who could compete for the absolute seat of the 9 stars. But they were informed that he secretly joined the Marks Cromwell. He boasted the most incredible wealth after the Duke. They constantly butted heads, which came to the point that a battle about territory could break between two families. He told her that if the rumors about the engagement were spread, they could surpass the other party, so they were trying to engage her by engaging her with a label to get Agnes's help. But he still felt bitter about this. She wonders if she needs to ask him for help, but he tells her there is no need, as the pride of the noble family matters. He knows she is pretending to leave Babel, so he tells her not to sacrifice too much for her family. He told her to talk to the protagonist as the way she acted toward him didn't feel fake, so he wanted them to have a severe conversation, so she instructed him to arrange a dinner between them before he left. On the night when the Crimson Knight Order returned, a grand feast was prepared at the Agnes estate. Everyone was discussing his skill, and he started calling him his liege, but he felt uncomfortable. He wanted to refuse to take the oath, but he believed he would be that ignorant. The protagonist told him to head back as he tried to rest. After he left, he thought people wanted to learn from him, but he refused because he wanted to become his sword and was afraid he would become vigilant if he knew that. He remembered the painful memories of the betrayal in the past and grabbed his head. Then the man arrived and asked if he should call a doctor. After hearing he was okay, he told him that he had the dinner arranged by Duchess Vanessa, and that his mother Lucia was also attending. He entered the dining room and was glad to see his mother while Lady Vanessa talked to him, but he ignored her and didn't greet her. Chiffon told him to behave in a manner but glared at him. After her mother told him to greet her, he greeted her and introduced himself, but she was pissed off after hearing him use the name Agnes but decided to hold on since she wouldn't see him after today as he was going to the capital. His mother was stunned as she didn't know about this, so Chiffon told him that he was recognized as the knight, so the Duke was sending him to the academy. She was so pleased to know this. Lady Vanessa said that she arranged this dinner to congratulate him and rang the bell to set the food. The protagonist looked at the food and smirked. She told him to eat it, but he ignored it. Lucia instructed him to be respectful, but Vanessa thought that dinner might make them uncomfortable and said that she planned this dinner to grow closer to them, so she was grateful to her. While he was about to eat, he stood and apologized to her for not properly introducing himself and thanking them for taking care of them. But she didn't care, so she told him to eat dinner. She reached them, but they didn't accept her kind gesture, and he felt uncomfortable because they had more delicious and variety of food than her, so he wanted to have the same dinner. He encountered this method many times. The poison was cleverly put in their food and is of the type that isn't easily detectable and doesn't leave a trace. But she refused to eat with him, making the excuse of dieting. But he told her that she had a perfect figure that didn't need any maintenance. So she realized that he might come to know about the poison, and she thought he would suspect her of refusing again. He asked her what she was thinking and if she put the poison in their food. Chiffon talked harshly to him as if he was disrespecting him, but he told him that he was the one who was disrespecting him and asked if he forgot to whom he was talking. He could feel the killing intent from him, and the protagonist asked her if she put the poison in their food. Chiffon's reaction showed that, but he got furious and drew the sword to kill him. The protagonist asked how he dared to draw his sword toward him after putting the poison in their food, but his aura was unbearable. He didn't want to pull his sword as he was threatened about his growth in the future, so he decided to kill him. Meanwhile, the prince was reading the book in the garden when the knight appeared and showed him the letter from Agnes regarding his decision. He thought it would be insolent to open the letter, so he brought it to him and wondered if he accepted his offer. The knight believed he might have taken it as it was the place everyone dreamed of, but the prince read the letter, laughed, and thought he was interesting. When they were ready to fight, Duke asked them what they were doing, and then Lady Vanessa told him she invited Lucia and the protagonist for dinner because she heard he was sending them to the capital. He thought for a while and looked at the poisoned food and asked him how long he would stay like that, so he put his sword in the shield. Duke told Joshua to rest as they were going to leave early tomorrow, and he left with his mother. Vanessa asked him why he was acting like this. He asked her if she resented him, and she said yes, as he was paying extra attention to that commoner, and never once loved her because all he cared about was his family. She never complained to him because of their arranged marriage, but she didn't want to stand still if her child would be victimized, and she thought he would know basic courtesy. He was startled and asked her if someone who knew basic courtesy did something like this. They were shocked and asked what he was talking about, so he asked them if they thought he would never know about it. The protagonist went to his room and felt his mother would be sad because he didn't tell her about the capital and thought he was still worried. Kane told him to open the door and ask about the meal, and he wondered how he knew, so he explained that he had asked the butler because he wasn't in his room. He thought it wise to head to the capital to help him grow and learn from his father, Duke Agnes. He questioned if he came to say this, so he told him that he wanted to ask the favor and requested to give him the honor of serving him as his liege. He told him that he had come to the wrong place because he was planning on playing the knights as his path was filled with bloody criticism, but he still wanted to follow and believe him. He lifted his sword and said he wanted to bet his life to serve him, so he requested that he give him that chance. He grabbed his sword and agreed. The following day, he left with the Duke and asked if he was okay with one knight as he might need more servants. The protagonist asked him if he had forgotten how he lived till now so one person would be enough on their way. Cheryl rushed to them and requested to stop, and she greeted him and apologized for meeting him late. She acted so manly that he said he liked her old tomboyish self. She worked as an ordinary person when Duke asked him if she wanted to go to the capital, but she had to visit the Cox family. She went to Joshua and said that she wanted to tell him something, and he wondered what she was up to. She gave him the symbol that belonged to her family. She requested to visit her family when he reached Akari, but her knight was shocked as she was not supposed to give it too quickly to anyone. He inquired the reason behind this, so she told him to consider it an invitation. The knights were gossiping that she might like him. He thought no one could resist such a proposal, so he realized he couldn't refuse to take this as the rumors would spread, and he would get more attention. While he pondered, she pretended to cry and asked if he intended to humiliate her, so he comprehended that she might come to him prepared, so he accepted the symbol and hurried to leave. Before leaving, Duke asked her if he could also visit her or if this offer was just for his son. She said of course, so they bid them farewell and left. Meanwhile, at the Grand Imperial Palace of Avolan Empire Kataka, they knew about their empire and assumed they would reach there in 3 days. The knight told the king that Joshua rejected the order of the Imperial Knight. He was stunned as he dared to refuse the order of the most substantial empire in the world. He wonders if he thinks of himself as more capable of taking over the Agnes family. But the knight doesn't think this based on the letter because he said that he doesn't need the prince's recommendation and would obey the emperor's laws. He laughed because following the law meant he would defeat the honorable knights of the palace with his strength. 4 days later, at the Anis family mansion in the capital, his mother was stunned to know they would live in such a beautiful palace. Cain thought that the villa had stayed the same even though much time had passed, so the protagonist asked if he had come there. He told him that he had come here once following the Duke when he was a child. The protagonist was astonished to know his father was that close to him, but he never heard his name in his past life and assumed that he might have disappeared along with the downfall of the Agnes family. He saw that few people were around and that Cain could care for his mother, so he wanted to solve this issue. He told Cain that he would have something to do, so he was leaving and instructed him to take care of his mother, and he thought he might be looking around. That night, in the Akardi downfall area, he didn't change while entering the palace. He was curious about how people would look at him. The man thought he might have lost his way and offered to leave him, but he was stunned when he said he wanted to find the red coin buried deep in the rough river, and then the man guided him. They entered the room, and the man told Ryan he would leave the counter to him. He looked at the kid as they were curious about why the kid was there. They entered another room and opened the secret passage. Joshua thought he didn't need to worry about the leak as they secured themselves that much. They entered the basement, and the man sitting on the chair greeted him. The protagonist thought he might be in a higher position because they were very polite. They entered another room, and he told him to sit near the seat. He saw the hole and assumed that they might be giving information through the hole. He asked what information he wanted, and Joshua asked if he was directly selling the information. It was hilarious that the branch manager was with him when he received the third-rate information. He was startled and asked how he was confident that he was the branch manager. He replied that the true identity of the person in the organization was hidden. But he noted how people acted towards him, so he drew his conclusion, and the man said that he expected rumors to be exaggerated. But now he had seen with his eyes that it seemed to him that he had been downplayed instead, and he came to know that he also knew about his real identity. He told him he is currently the most talked about person on the continent. He realized their skill at gathering information was trustworthy as he knew about his identity. Indignant that a duke had all his life and thought his data could be sold anytime. He knew from his expression what he was worried about, so he clarified that few people knew him and introduced himself as Zero, who was in charge of the moon door of the Akardi branch. He asked if he could guide him to the third-graded room to provide that information. He assured me that he would provide him with first-grade details because he wanted to connect with him. The protagonist said that he assumed he could provide 0th grade information since his name was Zero, and he thought the moon or didn't try to pry information out of their customers and asked if he was wrong. He was stunned and apologized and asked what kind of information he needed, so he told him that he wanted to know where the hero of the Orvis family was. Zero talked for a while and told him it would take a week for them to get the information. The protagonist thought the information was sensitive, so to avoid the problem, he put the bait to chomp them. He said that one who finds the red coin buried somewhere is blessed with the moon, and one who brings the symbol will earn a moon door. He was stunned as this legend was passed down to a few in the organization and wondered who he was, so he said that if he accepted his condition, he would find that symbol for him in 3 years. He wanted to hear his condition before making the deal, and Joshua said he wanted them not to leak his information and give him the info about Draxia Belgrace. 2 months passed, and he was training to regain his strength and was persuading his mother to move to another place. He stubbornly persuaded her and moved to another location. A week before his admission into the academy, He wondered why he didn't get any information when they told him to wait for a week and wanted to enter the academy because this might significantly impact his plan. While he was still thinking, he arrived and was talking to him, and Cain glared at him, but he told him that he knew this person, so it was alright. He told him it took a while because many people got involved, but he tracked it down, gave him the information, and read the information regarding the Orvis Count family. A long time ago, the family members were contemptuous because they were magic of Avalon, and the head defeated knights who were on the verge of mastering rank. This incident received much attention from King Terra several decades ago, and Radiant Orvis fell into ruin instantly by their own country's imperial family. He read the name Baron Accent, the great merchant of the night, written to it while thinking that Viscount Biggs was his brother and Count Rebecca arrived. Baron Provalium is one of the 3 influential underworld figures, and he greeted Veron Shen Villas and told him that the deadline for their promise had already passed. He told him that elves are so rare that they won't be able to get them so quickly, so he wanted some more time, although he didn't want to hear the excuses he gave him for 1 week. He assured him to bring them in that time and warned them that he wouldn't be able to enjoy many things in the capital anymore if he failed after he left. He thought his life shortened every time he met him. He had to make this impossible thing happen in a week, otherwise everything would crumble because he is the son of an influential figure in the military, and he will make this happen. While leaving, his man asked why he gave him a week as it would be difficult, but he said that intimidation is the most crucial thing the king needs. If Baron Provalium failed to get elves, he would trample on him when he reached the limit of his fear. He would become more obedient after he showed some mercy. Meanwhile, Count Rebecca met them after a long time and asked if he disturbed them, but he said no. The protagonist remembered that Pencil Jin Rebecca was an ignoble noble born with a weak body and a weak-looking appearance. Despite being from a noble family, he talked formally to everyone. Other nobles ridicule him because of this behavior, but he is the most respected noble among commoners. When Veron Shen Villas arrived, he went to talk with her. He looked at her carefully, wondered if such a beautiful lady was in the capital, and asked about her family. She didn't respond, so his man told him to show courtesy because he was the son of the Villa Marquis family. So Pencil Jin Rebecca moved her behind and greeted him. He said he didn't want his apology but thought he was not educating his daughter because she lacked courtesy and wanted her apology. Cain wonders why he is so unreasonable when they have never been acquainted and thinks he is asserting his authority while borrowing his family name. He went to her and ordered her furiously to show some courtesy, but the protagonist told him to stop messing around and thought his father must be concerned with his only son being simple. They get angry with him and ask if he wants to get killed because his man pulled out his sword. He tells him that he should know the weight behind his action because he was trained with his sword. He wonders what he is talking about, and she tells him to take responsibility for his actions and trembles at his killing intent. He asks his knight why he isn't attacking him, and the protagonist tells him that he is Ash Van Friedrich because he keeps asking about him. Veron repeats his name, so he tells him he doesn't need to keep saying it since he will engrave it into his memory. Meanwhile, Anna was meeting a man whose father was out of his mind, and he asked her if something was wrong because it was an emergency summons. She told him the monster appeared in the Agnes Duchy, and he wondered if she was talking about Babel. She realized that news hadn't spread to their continent, so she told him that Duke had another son whose abilities surpassed Babel's. He was surprised and asked why she informed him earlier. She said to him that the words would spread out soon because the Duke was spreading it, and such rumors gathered and became an extraordinary power in a peaceful time. He thought that it said the world was at peace, but they are currently on the verge of erupting, and she said each country is accumulating its power. Although the citizens thought it was better, the reality is different because the accumulation of power must burst out. Every country masters would participate in a war. No country would wage war without a chance of victory, so information is necessary. He understood what she wanted to say, but one misstep could cause their plan to go up in flames. She had a plan for it and said that he would enroll in the academy and try to bring Joshua to their side. While at the restaurant in the capital, he asked him how he dared to meddle in his business and told him to kneel for forgiveness and then let him off with one severed limb. He told Mucker to make him knelt in front of him while attacking him. He thought he was a dead man the moment he defied the Villa's family. He was defeated with a single punch, which shocked him. He beat him with a fist when he was a B-rank knight, and Joshua asked him how he should deal with him. He asked for his identity, but he said he was Ash Friedrich. He told him not to lie as he never heard the name of such a family and was non-stop talking when he punched him. He went to him as he wasn't done yet, and he grabbed him and asked where his high and mighty attitude went, but Mucker apologized and asked for mercy. He was able to comprehend his power, but he realized that his rank master must belong to a hidden family. He said that he was not the type to have mercy. He hit his head on the floor and asked for mercy in return. He offered his arm as he didn't mind if he began to use a sword because he failed to protect his master. He remembered the man who dedicated himself as an idiot for his sake. But he wasn't the type to forgive his enemy easily. So he got his family ring and instructed the knight to tell him to come and get it after he became conscious. Otherwise, he would sell it. Cain thought he was always like that, but he told him not to follow him. County Rebecca was amazed by him and asked Iselin what was wrong. But he rushed away, looked at Mucker, and proposed to guide him to the nearest clinic. After he becomes conscious, he looks at his swollen face, gets furious, and orders Mucker to bring him. But he cannot do this with his current strength. So he warns him about the consequences he will face. He ordered him to return to the state and find out about him while he found out about his family and cut their throats. But they don't have justification, as no one would believe a 10-year-old child beat them. Even if they fought them, the family's reputation would fall to the extent that society's views about the family would change. But he thinks reputation doesn't matter, so he tells him that it matters to the noble family more than their life, and says that even if he doesn't believe him and his father heard about it, it won't end with the punishment. He suggested killing everyone there and erasing the evidence, but he told him that the protagonist took the token of his family, and he was stunned and looked for it. Mucker told him that he wanted to see him if he wanted the ring and suggested to quell his anger because this situation had more costs than benefits. He asked if he wanted him to find him and apologized, but he told him to send the substitute. Cain asked if he thought he would come for the ring, but he said he would probably send the replacement someone of high enough status with no risk of information leakage. There are rumors that Accent Provalum manages the Knight of Akardi, and that he is the puppet of Baron Shen Villas, and he is amazed to know that it was all his plan, not anger. Lady Iselin arrived and thanked him for his help, but he told her that she didn't need to thank him because he didn't do this specifically for him. She still wanted to thank him because her family was going to fall due to this incident. He thought his personality was utterly different from someone who would become a future grand sorcery, and wondered how such a gentle person would become who didn't shed tears or blood. She was like an ice flower that exuded beauty even in the cold, and he thought her name suited her well when she wanted to testify for him as a witness. He told her there was no need, but he wanted her help in the future, and he looked out the window where the light was shining and smiled. Zero rushed away from there and was stunned to know he knew about him all the time. He thought his strength wouldn't be found by a master from his skill, but he could tell the information was not wrong. Baron Accent was outside the restaurant, and after he saw County Rebirth coming out from there, he became sure about the location and entered the restaurant. He greeted him and requested to return the ring because it was precious to him. He told him he wanted to meet Baron, but he lied and was still unconscious. He told the Viscount to bring Knight Mucker with him next time, and then they would discuss it. He told him that since he accepted one of his requests, he should also accept his, so he told him to hand over the rings he was wearing. While returning, Cain says he is a monster as he extorts treasure without change in expression. But he thinks it a fair trade to get something equal in return for giving him a chance. He asked him why he wanted this ring that poorly, and he thought that, sometime before, beautiful elves fascinated him, so they started killing them and hiding in the forest. High-level magicians protected the woods by a barrier maintained by High Elf, who died, and only one High Elf remained was named Alunbus. Alunbus had a human friend from the Orbis family, Zerath Dick Orbis, who died while being tortured by humans to get their information, but he did not say anything. Alunbus, when they knew about this, went to meet the only disciple who was working as a servant, and she shed her tears, which seeped into the ring. Since then, this ring has been called Elves' Tear, and it was supposed to hold extraordinary power. Cain asked what he was wondering as they had arranged the mansion, and he requested that he return to Duke after enrolling in the academy. Cain assumed he wanted him to become Lucia's guardian but was worried about him as he would be the son of the noble family without any attendants. He started facing the problem, so he would need him to take care of them, and he was worried because Baron Shen Villas was also in the academy, so that he would go after him. The protagonist said that he planned to live quietly and requested him to learn swordsmanship from the Duke, so he told him to raise his head as he didn't want to see the person he was serving bowing his head to anyone. He agreed and, in return, requested him never to let him turn his head in front of someone other than him and promised to reside in his care. At the center of the vast continent, surrounded by superpowers, is a high tower that is the pride of magicians and known as the Magic Tower. Magic Tower Master Ian Dunperry was angry because the three red flames, Thunderbolt, and the void seats were empty. Magician Marcus, the 7th magician in the Earth seat, said that Red Flame and Void didn't want to see each other, but Thunderbolt was busy with his matter. They started the meeting, whose main topic was Primordial Stone Theta. The 7th magician said it's not like the Elder to get straight to the point, so the other magician told him to mind his manners. He asked them if it was confirmed that Magma disappeared, but the magician told him Bronto had disappeared, and they were shocked. They thought they would have taken it by mistake, but Alicia Seven's magician said it was difficult if that was not the case. Marcus told them that he heard a swordsman appear in the area of the Agnes Duchy, where Bronto's disappeared. He told them that the swordsman that occurred was the person who just turned 9, and the leader instructed him to pay close attention to the one who took the magma, but Alicia thought it would be the swordsman. Marcus thought it was not true as the swordman was the son of Agnes, and Theta told him to tell all the information earlier. But the Elder told him to be silent, and the meeting ended. After they left, the Elder thought that the world changed very quickly, but he did not know if that change was for good or bad. He was casting the spell in the rune language, and he was surprised and wondered how he knew this language because only high-level magicians knew this. After the magic was completed, he asked if he was right. He wondered which elf gave this a blessing that the rune language was engraved on this, and he told him that this was a 7th class high-level barrier that protects its user. He requested the ring but said to him that it was made for the daughter of the Orvis family so that the man couldn't use it, and he planned to give it to his mother. Later, Zero put his hand on the globe and greeted his master, who asked him if the matter was about the child, and he said he wanted to report the trivial case. She already knew he was special and asked him if he knew the magic tower started to find him, but he was stunned, so she said that one of the magicians was looking at him thinking he was a magic swordsman. The current problem was the secret of their organization. She wanted to visit him herself, but because of the issues inside the organization, she was unable to do so and thought things would change if Joshua brought that red coin, so he trusted him with this matter. While Viscount Vigo was tied to a tree, the man told him to shut up and see what he would do, and he cast the spell, which caused the lightning to rain, and the monsters were defeated. He asked him how his magic was compared to Joshua, and he told him that his magic was higher than that, but he planned to meet the protagonist to confirm his specialty. He told him that he had been admitted to the academy in the capital, and he thought it would be difficult for him to meet him there. Viscount said he would gladly help Jim meet the child because he doesn't like him, and he wondered how he could help him, but he knew that he was Serops, the 7th magician. He was stunned because he knew about his identity, and the Viscount told him that if he joined hands with him, he would help him as he had many connections in Avalon. He doesn't want to join hands with a mere Viscount, but he doesn't want his identity leaked. Viscount said that if he killed him, then Duke wouldn't stay still, but he killed him using lighting and said no one would care about him. Joshua entered the academy after turning 10. In the academy, students were divided into 6 groups, advanced to the next grade through an advancement exam, and graduated from the academy after passing graduation exams. He believed 6 years would be enough for him to reach the 5th stage of spear art, like his past life.
Today's video ends here. Comment next if you want the next chapter. Like, share, and subscribe for more recaps. Full video available on the channel.